This episode of Defining Duke is brought to you by BetterHelp. What interferes with your happiness? Is it something as trivial as ride to hell retribution, or is it something much more serious like depression? Well, with BetterHelp, it'll assist your needs and match you with your own licensed professional therapist. It's not a crisis line, it's not self-help, it's professional counseling done securely online, where you can send a message to your counselor at any time and you'll get timely, thoughtful responses that you can schedule weekly via a video or phone session, whatever you're comfortable with. I want you to start living a happier life today. As a listener, you'll get 10% off your first month by visiting our sponsor at betterhelp.com/Duke. You've looked something up on the internet before and you don't want people to know about it. All right, I'll go first. I've looked up a Knights of the Old Republic walkthrough or two, okay? I gotta know what's going on with my favorite game of all time. Make sure I covered every corner of it. That's why even when I'm at home, I never go online without ExpressVPN. It's an app that reroutes your internet connection through their secure servers so your ISP can't see the sites you visit. Visit my exclusive link, expressvpn.com/Duke, and you can get an extra 3 months free on a 1-year package. That's ExpressVPN, expressvpn.com/Duke, expressvpn.com/Duke to learn more. Defining Duke, an Xbox podcast, is brought to you by, well, you. If you want to learn how to support the show, go to patreon.com/laststandmedia. Salutations, everybody. It is Matty here today, and welcome to Defining Duke, an Xbox podcast. This is episode 21.
And it's me, Karak with ACG.
All right, here we go. E3 is soon upon us. We're getting our plans all together. I just want to let everyone know next week is our E3 show. We're going to have Lord Cognito of the Iron Lords podcast joining us, which I'm really excited about. And we're going to do E3 predictions and the like. So just keep this in mind for next week's write-ins. Please do write in with some of your predictions. And we're really going to fill our news section with that. Of course, we'll still have news. I imagine things will happen in the Xbox world. But we want to have a dedicated E3 show. So we'll be recording that June 2nd. And it'll go live to patrons the day afterwards. And then on free feeds where you'll be able to listen to it up until the 12th, which is the day before, Xbox's E3, and then the show after, we'll talk about everything that we see and get that out for all of you. So I just wanted to put that right here at the front for those who are looking for it, because today we're going to be talking about E3, of course, and then next week will be more of our prep and predictions show. For those of you who are new, though, and you're looking for early access to our show, we go live on Thursdays over at patreon.com/laststandmedia, where we have 12,000 plus of you. Thank you so much for supporting our show. We've been getting more and more write-ins, even when we posted last minute, because Dustin and I had a little bit of a miscommunication. We had 40 plus write-ins. So thank you so much for jumping on that for us, because I was a little bit nervous we wouldn't have enough for our show today, but we had plenty to go through. So thank you for being thoughtful, kind, and engaged. And if you want to be a freeloader, that's fine. We welcome you to on Sundays to all podcast platforms and video versions on YouTube. Karak, how are you? We're recording a little bit later, so are you feeling a little bit more awake? Because it's still it's just hitting the afternoon for you.
Yeah, no, opposite.
Opposite. You crashed during the.
I crashed. One of the reasons why you notice all my podcasts are very well. Yours on Friday is later, but that's because mine is at the time we always do. Like, I'm very militant in my time, and that's so, like, I'm way off. Like, that's why I missed you, because I was like laying on my couch just like, oh my God, I feel horrible, because I just ramp up at a very, very specific time. But remember, I wake up at 3 a.m., so to you, it's whatever time. Well, you know what? Technically, we're about the same time. Well, no, I mean, because I'm Pacific, I would say if you add the 3 hours, I probably feel like you do right now, maybe. Like, we're sort of close to each other. But yeah, it's rough, actually. Like, I forgot how rough it can be having a weird time for something. And that's no problem. It happens. Like, shit happens all the time. But yeah, I noticed that. I was like, holy fuck. I couldn't even get my brain engaged enough to make sure, like, my lighting was even working at all, even though it's pretty bad most of the time.
I get that. Sometimes I function pretty well when I'm displaced. This past week, I guested on like 3 different shows, which was awesome. Because I typically don't guest on podcasts just because it's hard to do my own, let alone be on a bunch of others. But I was on, as always, Iron Lords. I was on Colt Eastwood's Xbox Newscast, and so it was just fun to do that. And so my schedule has been all over the place, and I've sort of been like just rocking and rolling at all random hours, and that's been kind of fun because I'm going away this weekend, so for a wedding, meaning that pretty much I'll be unavailable. So I'm just like putting everything on the forefront now. So then,
sure,
got a couple of days later on. But anyway, you didn't come to hear about my wedding plans. You came here to talk Xbox, E3, PC, all of that good stuff. So let's get into it with some intro write-ins, we'll call them, from the audience, and then dive into your warm-up question. So first off is Army of Knave. Hello, Duke Duo. I'm writing in with a small correction. By the way, I like that you all are writing in with corrections. It shows that you're listening to what we're saying and not just having it on in the background. It makes me really happy. So continue to do this, please. We'd like to make sure our show is as accurate as possible. So we'll continue to feature this stuff.
No problem. Back.
Yep. While talking about how Xbox should implement platinum trophies, you expressed that you would love to get something extra like a wallpaper when the platinum unlocked. I'd like to remind everyone that you do get a wallpaper on Xbox, only it is with every achievement you unlock rather than just the platinum. Every achievement comes with a high-resolution image attached, and developers can attach art to each one if they decide they want to take advantage of this feature. If you want examples, go look at the Master Chief Collection. To apply the achievement art as a wallpaper, you simply press Customize button, which I believe is Y on the dashboard, and select what you want for the achievement art as your background. Cheers and have a good day for once. Thank you. I appreciate this. I actually completely forgot about this when I was talking about it. So we'll have to think of a new digital goodie for Xbox to do when they when you pop their one day platinum trophy. But it certainly won't be a wallpaper. Gamer pictures, reward points for their Microsoft Rewards program. I don't know. They're supposed to be the forward thinkers, not me. But thank you anyway for writing in, Army of Knave. Appreciate the correction. Next one, a little bit more interesting. I'm going to be curious to see what Karak has to say on this one. Breton S. Ali writes in, hello, gentlemen. Last week, both of you insisted that it is necessary for a consumer to partake in others' reviews before buying a product. While I agree that reviews can be a helpful tool to prevent purchasing broken or inefficient products, I'm a firm believer that reviews do not have the same usefulness when critiquing art like video games. Unless the review is used to reveal that a game is broken or buggy, the review acts as an arguably harmful surrogate for the player's thoughts. A player who has no intention of playing a game now run around with processless opinions, and players who did or still intend to play a game now have their thoughts heavily colored. Referring to last week, while I may step in dog shit, at least I myself now truly know what dog shit looks, smells, and feels like. I hope you all eat imitation crab this week. Last week's reference, I believe Matty was stating that not reading reviews was the equivalent of looking at dog shit and stepping in it to find out it is dog shit. Yeah, no one liked any of my analogies last week, by the way. No one liked my chef one. There was a lot of whataboutism happening. That was what was occurring pretty actively. So do you remember last week I said how I said if you wanted to have dinner but you didn't know it was coming, wouldn't you wouldn't be excited for that meal when we were talking about Starfield? So a lot of people wrote in, they're like, well, if the chef is good, Todd Howard, then you're going to expect a good meal. And then my response to people in the comments was like, well, what if the chef fucked up your last two meals? Are you as excited or are you tempered? And then no one liked my dog shit one either. So, Karak, I'm not one good with words, it appears, but what do you make of Brenton writing in saying that it's possible reviews color people's takes of games in a negative light? I think that's more important for the critic rather than the consumer, but I'll get into my thoughts afterwards. I know you're a review guy here.
Well, we already, he might not have listened to the podcast because we actually stated that. We were talking about the difference between unlimited money, which I made very clear. Mm-hmm. There's a difference between having unlimited money and the ability to just go out and purchase everything willy-nilly without reviews. And then there's reviews and what they do for a normal person who has a normal allotted amount of money. I even talked about limitless money. So I don't know what he's talking about. He probably heard one thing and then sort of got angry about it. But that's, I mean, if you've got unlimited money, if you're, and I said this last podcast, if you're a Saudi oil sheik, buy every game. Buy every game you want. And if you feel that one or two reviews or what have you will color you to not getting something, my suggestion would be you need to understand what you're actually focusing on. Like, what would matter to you? Because at that point, I don't really get what you're even talking about. You go, as long as you're smart with your reviews, in a way, sort of the chef thing, but as long as you're smart with your reviews, you know what somebody's talking about, you should get context from it, not necessarily the desire to not buy something, but the desire or the understanding of problems within a game. If the game's got technical problems, for instance, if he's considering that coloring of something, that there's no argument. Like, because I don't even think that way. That, to me, is just warned. It's almost like an amazing chef at a shitty restaurant who's poisoning everybody all the time, but he still occasionally makes good stuff. It's like, you'd still want to know, right? You'd still want to be like, yeah, should we go or should we not? So that argument, to me, doesn't hold any water whatsoever. Unless you're outside of what you and I, and outside of who you and I talk to. If we're going outside of who you and I talk to, completely different thing. Also, rentals. Game Pass, completely separate. It's why I talk about them in reviews. I'll tell you $60 yes, no, but I'll also tell you, hey, if you got Game Pass, go fucking check this thing out. Like Biomutant. I was like, that thing's on EA Pro. Dude, I was like, don't buy it, but if you have EA Pro, or can get it, because you should be able to, then just get EA Pro and check it out for $15 a month. You know,
I heard that in your review. I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool surprise to have it on EA because it's THQ Nordic, and I don't know how all that went.
I don't know how that happened, but
yeah, I don't know how that went down.
Like that's why when I heard in your review, I was like, "What?" So you can get it on EA Play Pro? Like that's very interesting.
Isn't that weird? Yeah, I don't understand the ins and outs of it. I'm sure it makes sense to somebody, but
yeah, probably the bottom line. I'll just add on one little thing. When it comes to watching reviews. And to me, it almost sounds like a demand for blissful ignorance, like being able to kind of not see the problems. Because the thing is, Biomutant's a perfect example of a game that even if you see its flaws, you can still enjoy that game. That's what I was trying to allude to in my review. So I don't know, like you're saying, Brenton, that like it colors their opinion, it colors stuff that it seems like maybe they otherwise wouldn't have noticed. And it's like, that's, you know, I'm not trying to be the always bearer of bad news and bring you back to earth constantly. But, you know, it's like if they notice it, then I think that's a good thing because it may sway other purchasing decisions in the future if they end up not liking it. It's almost requesting that people actively miss stuff because they're happy with it. And it's like, no, you've got to wake up. So,
yeah, I mean, I guess that's just a different thought process. I'm just not rich enough to have it. Because that's a thought process of a rich person. I've had people, and I'm sure you've seen it. I've seen people be like, "Oh, how dare you listen to this person, whether it be me or somebody else? You should just go out and buy it on your own and think for yourself." And I'm like, God damn, man! Like I just don't get it. I think people must have the worst willpower in the world if by watching a review their entire life changes. Like, if I liked a game and I watched your review and you hammered on it, would that stop me from getting the game? No. That would inform me, as long as context was done correctly, that what you had issues with, I should watch out for, or forewarned. Now I'm forewarned. Do you know how many people I have in my Discord who tell me verbally, they're like, dude, I've found so many games because of you dissing on them, but I wouldn't even have known about it. But you dissed on stuff, and I was able to look at it and go, I still want to experience this because I am okay with this. Or at least I know now that the story is not a big deal, but the action is what you liked, and you found that part of it good.
Yeah.
That's what matters. Right. I think people are getting the art. We can talk about this. Games are art, games aren't art kind of stuff in the same way you can with novels or with paintings. But to me, it's just all about information. I don't think people should be so quick to. I have more confidence in them, I guess, than they do. I don't think they're as sheep as people think.
But you know, I think some people are just. I think the hype of a game release gets to a lot of people. You know,
true. You see a lot of defensism come up.
Oh, dude, in my Biomutant review, it's doing pretty well. I'm happy with it. I saw yours got trending. Congratulations, by the way.
Yeah, thanks.
But my Biomutant review, I was reading the comments, and as more people are getting their hands on it, I was one of those people who said, wait for sale. I like the ideas. I'm happy they tried new things. I think it should be purchased and played at some point, but not $60. And for those who want the full review, it's up on my channel. But I started reading some of the comments that were coming in new, fresh, like after the launch. And it's people coming in saying, like, YouTubers don't seem to get it. Like, it's that thing that tends to happen with certain games where it is that put up the walls, put up the defense for the game. They didn't understand it. And that just happens to be the discourse for a lot of games, sadly. So you eventually start tuning it out. But
it is weird, though.
Up defensism
Steam, it's rated as mixed. And whenever I see somebody say a reviewer doesn't get it, I'm like, what about the person right above you in the comment who didn't like it and they're playing it right now? Right? Like at some point you have to be like, dude, you either have to just grab your own mouth and shove it up your anus and start eating your own shit, or you gotta move on. Like, you can't continue to just be that stupid and that ignorant to think those things. And I've seen people post it right after, where like somebody will be like, I buy this game, I didn't like it, and somebody below it will be like, this person just didn't get it, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, dude, there's 1,000 other people. It's mixed on Steam. Ignoring Biomutant, this happens with all games, by the way. That's another thing. It happens with every single game. YouTubers liked it too much, didn't like it enough. Reviewers liked it too much, didn't like it enough. Yeah. It's just life.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's really, not even to be dismissive of anyone's opinion, it really is at times just not worth the headspace, because it does occur a lot. We actually have questions about a review process, so we can tap into that a little bit more later on in the show. But still like the question, Brett, and thank you for writing in.
Yeah.
Let's get into the last little question, and then we will do warm-ups. So, this one's a little more interesting, Karak. Old People Sex, that's his username. It's got a picture of him, and it looks like, I think it's his girlfriend too. This is why it's interesting, right? Like you can look like an idiot, but now you've brought her into the picture, and she looks like an idiot in turn as well. So your comment is, Xbox maybe changed my Xbox Live name because it was Old People Sex. Now it's Old People Fuck with a C. Okay. How do y'all feel about that?
I don't care.
Yeah, I almost feel like he wants attention, right? And I feel like we need to just not engage.
Yeah. I don't care at all. There's like fucking wars going on, and somebody's like, I had to make fuck with a K or with a C. It's just like, dude, yeah. don't give a shit, man.
I will give him this. I'll allow him to explain himself. Why is your name Old People Fuck or Sex previously? And you've given it not only to your Xbox gamer tag, it is your Patreon name. It's everywhere. Wow. So yeah, you're clueless, or there's something happening here, or you have a fetish you like to wear on your fine. We're not judging you, man.
Yeah.
But, you know, I'm good with it. We'd love to follow up if you wouldn't mind, and let's find out what's going on, because certainly we're not one to judge, but if it's a kink story, by the way, never write in. All right.
Yeah. Right.
Warm-up questions. Eliad Shlomovich writes in, hello, Dukes. Recently, various outlets and personas online have cautioned people to temper expectations for Xbox and otherwise. Do you believe we should treat this as a normal E3 showing? Ergo, hype with good news and meh news like usual. I have a feeling COVID-19 obliterated all hopes for a bombastic show, as delays likely happened. But we still should get some gameplays, surprises, and announcements. No? New subscriber and loving your show and the interplay of the young blood and old wizened gamer you guys have. Keep up the good work. Thank you for your hard work. Thank you, Eliad. Thank you for writing in and joining us here. Yeah, so what I've noticed more and more is people saying, like, relax on some of the Xbox hype, and I think it's building up because we're seeing, you know, the E3's returning finally. We've waited a year, and people were very excited for it. Where do you stand on this? Do you think people should temper their expectations? I'm in the ballpark of, I think you can be excited, not even based off like, oh, I know what's coming. Like, I think you can be excited for this. I think it's a safe year to be excited and expect some cool showings and games. I don't know if necessarily all of them you're going to see will be coming out this year, but I think you're going to see stuff that you like. But I know you're a little bit more grounded than myself in reality. You're in touch with no hype. So where do you sit on this as someone who's, you know, seen a lot of E3s come and go?
I don't really see that the hype is too much of an issue or interest is too much of an issue. It's just I've found that as time's gone on, I've learned that not going in with a ton of hype has allowed me to be interested and excited about things because I wasn't waiting for the thing I was looking forward to. So instead of looking towards Halo or Starfield, I can go into like this event, Sony's events, all these, and just go, what do you have for me? So mine is more reaction to what I get versus hype of what I think I may get and what I focus on. And it's almost the same way like a cameraman would work, where they'd bring different lenses, close, far away, whatever they may. I'm sort of more of a generalist, where and I think it's because I burned myself out when I was younger. I burned myself out on only first-person shooters being good or whatever, and then you miss out on blah 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 game. And after a while, you're like, holy fuck, who am I not hurting? I won't say, but what am I missing and who am I missing? I found out I was missing a lot of games. I would always look at other games, but Halo would be first or whatever. And I think it's pretty cool to just go into it laid back. But excitement, nothing wrong with that. As long as you don't anti-excite the other person, which I've seen where it's like, well, I'm excited for this, you're excited for this. Well, you're fucking stupid. Just so done with that kind of bullshit. But yeah, as long as it's not toxic. I hate using the word toxic because it's so misused now. It's like, it's so overdone. It's used for everything. Somebody did a capital D on dick. They're toxic. So I would assume dick would be toxic regardless, but for whatever reason, somebody's going to adjust the meaning. But yeah.
Depends on the dick, right?
Yeah, that is true. Yeah. It definitely depends.
We're talking about penis, or we talking about the name?
Maybe that's the thing. Is if it's capitalized, it's just the name, and if it's not, it's just the body part. I don't know. But I've seen people come up with the weirdest shit online about toxicity, where they'll be like, this is toxic, blah, 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 and you'll be looking at it going like, what the fuck? That's the thing that I don't want on these events, because I think gamers got it pretty good. I've had the pretty bad times, and we are not in them currently.
It's funny, as I do more nostalgic stuff, as I go back to older games and I do research on them and look at old articles from like 2005 and stuff, I start to realize how similar things kind of are. A lot of people kind of have the rose tinted glasses, and they look back at things and they go like, oh, it was so much better back then. I think it's once again what I was talking about with the blissful ignorance. It's like, I think we just knew less. So what I mean by this is I was looking at Jade Empire for a video, and I realized they had 3 different versions of Jade Empire that they resold. And it was really strange. There was the regular one, there was a limited edition, a special edition, each one adding content, and they resold it per release. And one of them was like exclusive to Canada, but then went worldwide, and it had different stuff that the original game didn't. So now it's a little bit different because the special edition's like on PC, it's more accessible, you have it on iOS. But it was funny to see that back then, even where I think there were just less people who cared. I think it's a product of gaming growing, so there is more excitement, but there is more people who are going to tell you to temper it, and there's more people who are going to be like, it was better back then. And in some ways I think it was, but I really think a lot of this just boils down to lack of awareness. And as I dive deep more and more, I'm realizing that even I would be unaware of some of this stuff because I grew up as a kid during it. But as for Eliad's question, I think I think you can go in expecting a decent E3 show. We'll talk about it later today, but it was confirmed that it's going to be a Bethesda and Xbox joint show, and it's the first time they're doing this because of the acquisition. I think all of that is just alone exciting. We're going to kind of get a look at a new format and what that could be for the future, and it's going to be different. What I also liked is they confirmed it was 90 minutes, and I thought, hey, with these two big companies, sometimes Bethesda stretches themselves thin, over-announces stuff. Now maybe they have the chance to shrink it down. It looks like they're doing that if they're keeping it in that hour and a half range. There's a lot of things that you can be excited about. They're either going to hit you with game after game, where it's going to be one of those moments where you'll have stuff you're excited about, and then the next exciting announcement will fly in and you'll forget about the previous game. That can sort of be a double-edged sword. That I get a little nervous about. Like Nintendo Directs typically do that to me, right? They like hit you with one good game. You're like, I think like Famicom Detective was kind of that game for me. I was like, that looks cool. And then another game like Mario Golf gets shown, and I went, whoa, oh my God, they're actually doing it. And I forgot about Famicom Detective until I think Modern Vintage Gamer posted on his Twitter account that he was playing it the day Mass Effect came out. It's like, oh, well, I'm not playing that. Mass Effect's here. And so that is typically the run for a lot of shows, and I think that may have the chance of happening here, but I hope they do more extended previews. We'll talk a little bit on that more, but yeah, Eliad, I think you're safe to be excited. No insider reports on that. Just I think you're safe. Everyone's safe to be excited. Just don't put your expectations in the clouds, and you'll be fine. But just, if you're like, I'm looking for a good show, I think you'll get one. Cody Richter's up next. Hey, Karak and Matty. Biomutant is finally out, and it appears to be reviewing mostly mediocre and middle of the road for many reviewers and outlets. A lot of people are enjoying many aspects of the game, but also feel it could use improvements in many parts based off your respective reviews. It seems you two feel that way as well. My question is, with the verdict being what it is on the game, do you see it coming to Game Pass in the future to help make up on what sales numbers it may miss out on? I thought this was a good window for us to talk more about Biomutant. We both did our own reviews on our channel, and so for those who didn't see them, we still recommend you check them out, but we can have an opportunity here to talk a little bit more on Biomutant, what we liked and didn't like. But to answer Cody's question, is this a Game Pass game? Is something I was wondering myself when going through. We've seen THQ Nordic, publisher of this game, Experiment 101 is the developer, buddy up with Game Pass a little bit more and more. We see Destroy All Humans just got added recently. We saw Darksiders on there at one point. Desperados is on there. So
Was 3 on there, or was it Genesis? Was it Darksiders 3 or Darksiders Genesis?
Both. Genesis is definitely there. 3, I think, was there.
Okay.
Yeah. So we've seen them get close to Game Pass in the past, and with Destroy All Humans releasing last August, and then now we're seeing it. I think you could expect a similar window for Biomutant. I think this game is not going to sell that bad because it's so unique that I love the discourse for the game, because you're really seeing people go, this is kind of what I expected, but I want to support the devs. I saw a lot of that in my comments. A lot of people saying, like, I'm going to go buy this game anyway. I think it looks cool. I think it's a great idea. And I think that's what it's all about, right? Is sometimes you will have more fun with those 7s and even 6s, while we don't do number scores, than you might with a 9 or a 10. There's just something like about those games that are rough around the edges. So yeah, I do think that this will end up being a Game Pass game, but I think it's down the line where you'd probably be, if you're curious about it, better off buying it on a sale. Because by the time you wait, maybe it'll be $20 and then it gets thrown on Game Pass and that's $15 a month. So what did you really save? I don't know. That's just my 2 cents. But do you think this will end up being a Game Pass game, especially with the EA Play Pro angle being in there?
Yeah, I don't know. I would hope so, but just get it into more and more hands, because it's not a terrible game.
Right.
So I'm absolutely fine with it doing well. I think that's what people think, is that if you're not in love with it, you want it to do poorly, and that's sort of in a weird way a little bit like a sports team kind of analogy, because there can be only one in a sports team situation. There's only one Super Bowl champion. Which is legitimate for sports, but it's absolutely shit for true art or true enjoyment. It's fun for those kind of things. But for me, I think the more hands it can get into, the better, because every single thing that's in there is either can be improved by somebody else, looked at by somebody else, identified as a cool thing, and then built upon, or at the very least, some dude who's having a bad day can play a fun game. Like, what the fuck is the harm in that? And I'd love the game to be given out for free if there was some way. I
know, right?
So Game Pass is I don't know what the chances are, because I just don't know how they're doing these deals. This one's a little odder than the rest, but I hope it does.
Yeah, I hope so too, and I feel like it eventually will. It's just really a matter of time. But as for the game itself, yeah, that's one thing that is always interesting. Like, a lot of people associate also wait for a sale as in you just don't like the game. And I don't think people realize there is this kind of crevice of, I like the ideas, I don't like the execution, with a lot of games out there. And funny enough, both of these are THQ Nordic published titles, but I felt this way about Darksiders 3. I loved its sort of Souls-like approach, its focus on difficulty, because the combat and the switching of styles was really cool, but it was, in my opinion, very much technically marred, and I didn't think it was as deeply as engaging as, strangely enough, previous entries, but I appreciated its ideas where I didn't hate it. I was just like, I don't like these things enough, buy it on a sale. Kind of same thing with Biomutant. It's got so much going on that I feel like it's a good case on how game design can benefit from being narrowed. You see lots of developers take to social media and interviews saying that sometimes it's best to cut a feature and save it for a sequel because it will mess up your game. And I think Biomutant's one of those things. I don't know if you agree, but I was thinking as I was playing it, imagine if they cut the mech, they maybe cut down a couple of the side quests, shrunk the world more. Would that have led to certain refinements in the game that needed them, like a lock-on system in combat, smoother animations, less knockdowns, those types of fine-tuning that don't necessarily overhaul your combat system, but make it feel better? But since they were busy working on, like, how does this mech play, animating it, making sure it works in the world, and creating missions around it, I couldn't help but feel like this was a game that was a good case study on where direction can sort of go wrong, because I think for those who are looking for a good example is a Plague Tale: Innocence. I think that's one of the best directed games I've seen because it does probably 4 things, like the plague rats, lighting, teamwork, and world building, and it does all of them expertly. Everything in that game drives those 4 things, whereas Biomutant's just very all over the place. So did you find yourself in that ballpark of maybe narrowing the scope a little bit more?
Yeah, that's one way they could have improved it. I don't necessarily know how much they needed to cut if they had put more enemies in there and a lock-in, because I may do a video on this. I've recorded the audio, but honestly, if I hear my fucking voice for even one more, I would rather fuck a razor-bladed, like, Lucha Libre than hear my voice for one more second talk about Zen gamers. But I've recorded a Zen, like, here's a Zen, here's what it's like being a Zen gamer. And here's why. Here's what you might like about Biomutant. If I get it out there, I'm gonna be happy. I don't know if I will, but I think that with that game, there's some Zen moments that are great. A lock-on would have helped when you came out of the Zen moments, and more enemies would have probably rewarded Zen players less, travel players less, because the Zen player sees a mountain, and like the travel between it is what's awesome. They see an enemy sometimes and go, oh. While a action player sees no enemy and goes, what? And they can both see the same enemy. One goes, oh man, and the other one's like, oh yeah, an enemy. And that's what happened in Biomutant. I was running for 40 minutes, no enemies. 30 minutes, no enemies, just going like, and then when you did get to battle, the lack of a lock-on, the terrible audio, just gutter level audio in this game. The lack of hitting and impacting, but at the same time loving the special effects of the poison and just being like, what the fuck, that the fire, when you'd like leave fire behind yourself and it was lighting on fire, it was like, this is fucking, it looks cool in moments if you pause it, but when you play it, you're like, god damn, this doesn't play very well. Like at all times, and that's the problem, is the game doesn't service either group. If the game serviced one group your way, they could serve it your way and they'd have no issues. They could do it my way and have less issues. Both would have less issues. They just, one of the type of players would be serviced less, the Zelda player or the action player. I think that game is right in the middle ground. That's why it's smack dab. It keeps getting hit by the train. But man, there were times where I was like, this is fucking awesome. Mech wasn't too great. It wasn't horrible, but dude, every time I got in a battle, man, you'd get a power and you'd be like, this power should be fun. And then you'd see how the power was used and you're like, nothing feels ABC. Even their combos, which I unlocked pretty much everything. So you have like BBA, that's about it. BBX, XXX, of course, you have your very typical. But then you get like the power of doing that fist from the sky, the dark fist. That looks cool when you see it. But when you cast it during a like combo, it's dog shit. It doesn't go ABC or sorry, ABXY fist. It goes ABXY fist once you've aimed. It's fucking brutal. And that's lack of a lock-in. And everybody I know said the same thing about the lack of lock-in. Every single person was talking to. I got so many DMs on that game, and you know, you're not supposed to talk about games. So I was just like, yeah, I'm hearing that. I didn't want to talk too much to people, but dude, DMs were on fire. People were like, is there a fucking lock-on? And
I think it's
normally you wouldn't ask that unless the combat was bad. And that's the honest truth. I don't think most people have to have a lock-in. It's that it wasn't the greatest combat already.
Mm-hmm. And I think everyone getting DMs, I was even getting them when I was reviewing it, is a sign that this was a conflicting game to review, because it's just like you see in the trailers. You'll look at it and go, wow, this looks great. You know, particle effects, presentation, graphically. Game looks really good. The armor you're wearing, they'll probably. I'm sure there's a trailer of them like swapping armor constantly.
Yeah,
it's so nice. Good. But
it's
when it's in action, that's the difference there. And so some people will like it. Dude, it's
armor.
funny you brought up. I was gonna say it's funny you brought up the Zen thing, because I heard that in your review and I was like, wow, that's interesting, because I started to, in the mid to mid end part of my game, get that Ubisoft feeling, where I was just being fucking harassed. Like, I'd turn another corner and there'd be another little mini boss health bar popping up. I'm like, Jesus, man, really? Another one? You know, it was constant. So I wonder if it was just different regions of the world that I was exploring versus your experience. But in the beginning,
it might also,
was fun. But
it could have been. Were you bothered by the narrator?
I turned his frequency down towards the end of the game to like 25.
Right, so the narrator, I like story tales and fairy tales, so I bought into the narrator almost right away, knowing, though, that, of course, people weren't. I never, ever felt there was enough to do in that game. So I didn't feel like it was Ubisoft. I felt like it was empty. Now, I get what you mean, because there certainly were the mini-boss bars that would pop up, but I just consider that you hating the combat even more than me is all. And that it was just hitting you when you'd see it.
Yeah, that's a good point.
You're just like, oh, God. And I'd be on my horse, and I'd be riding, and I'd see that mini bar, and which I also agree, I didn't love it, but maybe at the time, depending on the weapon also. That's another thing. The game just flatly, basically, at some point, you realize guns are just the fucking way to go. Like, there's no...
Yeah,
you can kite.
That, man.
There's not enough enemies, so you can kite for hours. So you can just sit back. And I made a weapon that I swear to God I didn't upgrade for so long because it just killed everybody. And I was like, the fuck is happening right now? Just bang, bang, bang. And you just back up and you just whittle them away.
It's broken, for sure. I realized that over time, because I beat the final boss without using my melee weapons, and my melee weapons were like statistically better. My character was a melee damage build.
It didn't matter, did it?
And I thought it was something I was doing, but then I watched Cowboy's review, and he was highlighting how he was same class as me, same type of build as me, and he was like, I'm not doing damage. And I was like, all right, it's something with the game for sure, because the guns will do insane damage, and it's something with because there's an armor system in the game, so there's armor penetration. Something about that's got to be changed, because I think that's what's happening is you're not doing enough damage with melee, which normally be like, oh, whatever, that's fine, but it's mostly like its biggest selling point is it's a fucking kung fu game. Like, that's everything to it.
And
if
one of
you're
the
using
best
guns
weapons
only,
is the gauntlet. Sorry, I was just going to say, I actually like the kung fu part of the game.
Absolutely. I thought the ideas for it were so sound, like using combos, building up the super Wung Fu meter, using that, just like beating the snot out of people in the midair. Yeah, that was amazing. In concept, it was just, like we've touched on 3 times now, it's execution, strictly.
I've rarely seen a game, also to speak about budget, I've rarely seen a game pull off wrestling moves without the enemy. And this game does it all the time. You have the pile drive move, and I posted that in my review. I haven't seen a game like go through the motions of a full wrestling move without an enemy, because it's a canned animation, in years. Like, that is pretty rough. That's pretty bad looking. And I pulled that off pretty quick. Like, one of the first things I did was saw that and was like, oh no, that's not what you want. Like, that's not what you want people seeing. Is it ignoring those? Because then things feel cheap and almost fake. You're like, well, it's pulling this off without the guy there. What does this mean? You know, so those kind of things pop up. Number 2, if they do a Biomutant 2, dude, the weapons, I fucking stop sign sharpened as well. Like, that's my shit. That's my jam. Like, the weapons, the armor, I'm into that. The fucking making your own gun was the coolest fucking... And the game is smart. This is why it speaks to Zen players. You don't have to combat to get a great deal of the guns. There's just locations with guns, loot, and chests. And that works so well because if you're like a Zen gamer, you just want to run around, you can still make your guy look pretty fucking cool without like having to take down an enemy to get a loot drop of some kind. That's actually very cool for those people who just want to explore but don't want to get their ass kicked. You can do that in this game fairly simply.
It'll develop a cult following. There's no doubt in my mind.
I think so. And my huge hope is that it sees a sequel.
I agree.
Because I think that I don't think they're going to walk away going, we don't agree with all these. I mean, most people have the same issues with the game. So that's good.
Pretty good. I was going to say, pretty easy to digest and move forward with a sequel. It reminds me, and then we'll move on to our next question. I signed on Twitter, and Black Isle Studios posted my review for Baldur's Gate.
Very cool.
Did you see what happened after? So they're like, thank you for your review. We're listening to feedback like this on how to improve. And I quoted, I'm like, wow, this is great. This was not a glowing review. I clearly love the original, but I was a little disappointed with the port. Props to the devs for sharing this type of review. They fucking deleted the tweet.
Oh, no, I saw it prior to them deleting it then.
They deleted the tweet. I was just like, wow, man.
Oh, that's too bad. That's a really bad look, man.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe somebody's nervous about how Twitter goes, but
I didn't shred it. I was just like, here's a clear blueprint. I think the thing I went hardest on, it was more so out of sarcasm, was what is wrong with this trophy list? But outside of that, like, I think I was pretty nice. But I thought it was funny. Just a cool little story there. This episode of Defining Duke is brought to you by BetterHelp. What interferes with your happiness? Is it something as trivial as ride to hell retribution, or is it something much more serious like depression? Is there something preventing you from achieving your goals? Well, with BetterHelp, it'll assist your needs and match you with your own licensed professional therapist. It's not a crisis line, it's not self-help, it's professional counseling done securely online, where you can send a message to your counselor at any time and you'll get timely, thoughtful responses that you can schedule weekly via a video or phone session, whatever you're comfortable with. That's one of the major priorities of BetterHelp, is making sure that you can connect in a safe, private, online environment where it's convenient and you can just leap into working on yourself. There are licensed professional counselors who are specialized in depression, stress, anxiety, relationships, anger, so on and so forth. I want you to start living a happier life today. As a listener, you'll get 10% off your first month by visiting our sponsor at betterhelp.com/Duke. Join over 1 million people who have taken charge of their mental health. Again, that's BetterHelp, HELP.com/Duke. All right, let's keep going because we got a lot more to go through. Walter Bully's up next. Yo, Dukes Nukem. Writing in with an ever so slight correction/grievance with last week's episode. I'd like to note that when I read this is not a correction whatsoever. Some context. I've been listening to your show since it premiered on Last Stand Media. Content with some grown man Xbox content. Imagine my surprise when the topic of best soda is brought up and Matty mentions some weird-ass Mountain Dew knockoff like he's an obscenity-spewing preteen in a Call of Duty lobby, and Karak says Bargs root beer despite the concession that it gives him crippling diarrhea, which I don't even remember you saying that. All this could be forgiven.
And it's called Bargs.
He said Bargs with a G. What an asswipe, right? All this could be forgiven, but you both neglected to mention the one true soda, Diet Coke. I apologize for the rant, but I'm speaking for the people here. Thank you for the content, and I hope you both have a Karak chugging, a 6-pack of Bargs, he said it again with a G, root beer kind of day.
What's he talking about? Yeah, no, Barks definitely, like root beers definitely make my stomach upset at times, but I still love it. That doesn't make any sense.
It's called
Sex
the Grand
can
Sacrifice.
be tiring. I'll still bang. So I don't know what this fucker's talking about.
I was
He's
going to
just
make like a gym
who doesn't-
reference, but we can hop into sex.
Well, I mean, I love a good pop, so I have both ways, sexually and when it comes to a drink.
I love cheese, but it gives me diarrhea when I have too much, man.
Does it? Yes.
Yeah,
I'm crossing my fingers. I've been lucky with cheese so far with like lactose, but I'm constantly on the lookout for that day.
It's because I'll have those days. I'm a Greek yogurt guy. We're going to get into this. I have a Greek yogurt guy, so I'll have some of that. And then I'll have eggs. I'm not thinking, right? And then maybe I'll have a sandwich with some Munster cheese on it, best cheese of all time. And that's when 4 in the afternoon it hits you and you're like, fuck, I know what I did. Because you're just living your life, right? You're having the food you enjoy. You're taking care of your body, putting those fibers in, the right type of protein in. You're just like, I'm doing well. And then your body fights back. And it's the worst fucking feeling. It's like this hot, crunchy, just you want to die. Yeah. I'm sure everyone relates.
Dude, luckily I buy the pills. I don't need them except for occasional ice cream because I don't need a small amount of ice cream. When I eat ice cream, the serving's the container. Fuck you. Like you'll see somebody say like servings 4 and I'm like for 4 small babies, but not for 1 grown Karak. That is one certain. No lie, dude. Don't buy me ice cream because it's a disaster. But that's when I might get a stomach ache. I eat cheese and stuff. But man, when it goes bad, doesn't it? Like it can really. I know friends who, unfortunately, as they've gotten older, you know, I haven't had any real issues, but they've sort of just have to check shit off their list of what they can eat, you know, or eat without taking all these precautions, which sort of sucks.
Yeah, for me, it's fast food. If I have fast food, my stomach does a flip and then another one. Like it is, I just feel awful. Like I've been craving a Crunchwrap Supreme as long as I can remember. But
Crunchwrap Supremes are supreme. They're fucking delicious.
Yeah, they are the king. I mean, that is probably the best fast food. It's not they make me sick. It's just fast food in general. Just the way it's cooked. Gotcha. Although technically, I think I've heard that Taco Bell is the healthiest. So whatever that means. I mean, you're really talking about eating diarrhea or shit out of a toilet. Like it's just, you know.
Yeah, at that point, there's varying levels.
They're both
of
pretty
hell,
rancid.
right?
Just one's more solidified
probably
than the other, right?
I would say my stuff I make at home is far worse though for you. Because I'll make like hamburger, you know, and you get that grease and like some people drain it, some people don't. Then you have cheese. And I would say I go overboard at home. So my home stuff is probably 3 times worse than Taco Time or Taco Bell. So I would say technically they are healthier for sure than me cooking something because I go big. There's no reason to make it if you're not going to go big.
Is that why you? It's worse. I remember you admitting that, you know, like you would choose Wendy's Baconator over your grill, right? That was
for sure. Yeah, yeah.
I was taking a shower and that hit me. And I was like, it was like a delay. Have you ever had something where like you just have a delayed?
Oh yeah. Usually when I do something really dumb, and then I'll go and I'll do like the physical, like, fuck, why did I do that?
I don't know why. I was thinking of you in my shower though, and all of a sudden, boom, there it was. I was like, Karak admitted he wanted Wendy's over his own grilled burgers,
and I grill well. Like,
yeah, you look like the type of guy who would, like the guy whose house I want to come over and have your barbecue food, man. Like, that's why I was so shocked. It's like,
dude, I'm trying
to wrap my head around it.
Dude, I like processed food more than I don't know how to, you know, you can say it's MSG, but I have MSG here because one of my wife being Chinese, they're big into MSG. They put it on shit. We put it on stuff. It doesn't taste the same. I don't know what it is, and I'm sure and I'm sure there's some reason out there, but for some, not all, not Burger King or something, but for some fast food joints, I would rather have their stuff. The same thing goes with like Italian food. All my friends are like, let me make you some lasagna, whatever the fuck, you know, they're like pretending to be Italian, and I'm like, dude, I would rather go by Fred Meyer or Target, like frozen lasagna, and just cook it up and eat it than wait for you to take 4 hours and me to go. It's true. I mean, and you'll hear people be like, you just haven't had it. And I've had everybody be like, okay, let me cook for you. And when I have it, I'm like, yeah, it's all right. I'm not. It's probably one of those things, though, where you get accustomed to the sharper, maybe more artificial tastes of things. And that just might be your shtick. You know, because I know a lot of people don't like don't like coffee. They like tea. And to me, tea tastes like a dirty glass. Like the person didn't wash the glass.
Yeah, it definitely has that type of flavor.
So I can see why it's just you grow up. Certain things hit you over time, and that becomes your expectation from that point on.
Yeah, if you ever want to drink what may just taste like a nasty fart, then have green tea. And
no, I've had it. It's fucking Cadiz. My friend has it.
It blows my mind. I got it the other day. I told this story briefly last week, but I got it. I took a sip, and I was like, people fucking drink this, and they drink it like it's so good. And I can't, because I like the herby taste of regular tea, right? I love that flavoring. Yeah, like I agree with what you said, right? It tastes like dirty, but to me, it's like I'm tasting the herbs. The ground is within me.
Right.
There's something spiritual about that experience. Whereas green tea, it's like, I'm trying to find a body part to use to describe this thing, but all I could think of is just asshole. Like that's quite literally what it is, man. It was one of the most horrific tastes I've experienced. Like and there are people who are walking out, green tea in hand, smiles on their face, and I'm like, you're living a lie. There's no doubt in my mind. It's the same dudes who eat SpaghettiOs. They just live a lie.
Where I worked, somebody would have that kombucha, which is like that mushroom juice shit. You ever heard of that?
Oh,
kombucha?
Yes, yeah.
Oh my God. And they'd be like, and I'm just like, dude, you're a like at some point we've gone above the animals. It's okay. It's okay to elevate yourself, but they're like, I'm returning to the earth and I'm drinking this mushroom juice or whatever.
I was going to say, you know what it is? My friends joke about it with me, but I think it's a real thing, right? I take good care of myself, but I wouldn't say I'm like a health nut. My friends say I have a health ego. I think some people like drink kombucha, they drink green tea, they drink these things that are good for you. I think they don't like the taste. I think that there's an ego attached to it. They think they're better than you when they have it.
Oh,
and they know they can, like, you sip on your pop and they're just like, well, fuck you. I got my green tea, as they, push up their round glasses and adjust their fucking turtleneck. You know what I'm talking about? Like, I think that's what's occurring here.
I'll outlift them, outrun them, and I've outlived most of them. So fuck what, and I'm not lying, man. There was one person who was giving me shit one time for pop and he died like a week later. And I was like, I didn't stand over him like a wrestler and go, bitch, you're dead. But at the same time, I was like, listen, Bob, you're dead and I'm here. I don't know what to say, man. Like, you hear this all the time and it's like the human body's... What?
I was gonna say, you definitely had a certain stance at his funeral, right? Like, hands were in the pockets.
No, I didn't go, but I would probably have done the thing where you put the hands in your pockets and you just sort of sway back. You're like, oh yeah. No, he's a great guy, by the way, but he used to give me shit all the time, and I was just like, dude, seriously, I'll outrun you, I'll out fucking lift you, my cardio's better, and I haven't died of cancer, and it's attacked me 3 times, so fuck off. And he died, and I was like, he died of a heart attack, unfortunately, but it is funny because and his family knows. We joke. We have actually joked since he's passed away about this. But it is funny because he was like that. He was like he would, and it wasn't on purpose. He just would do the pinky up on purpose to you. You know what I mean? Like, he'd be like, I'm drinking tea or whatever.
I will eat and drink stuff on purpose to antagonize people. Like, my buddy had a liver transplant. And he almost died, right? He was like, he actually died and came back to life is actually what happened. And so he can't drink, right? And he just turned 21. So I just drink beers in front of him. I'm just like, fuck you, bro. I'm like, fuck you. Because like, we just live to torment each other. It's not like he sits there, he doesn't care, but it's just like,
I know.
Yeah, of course, as best friends, we'll go too far. That's what we do.
Yeah. Somebody will tell you that.
They should have just not come back, all that stuff.
I mean, that's the thing, is some people can handle those jokes, some people can't, but I get it if you don't want to joke about that. Certain things I certainly won't joke about.
That's why it's dangerous to listen to a show with us too. It really is, because you and I both
we have a certain level of friends and we joke that way.
Yeah, we absolutely joke that way. So we get people upset about SpaghettiOs and it's like, well, fuck. Walk a day in our circle and let's see what happens.
yeah, they probably leave. Just saying.
College of Foes up next, and then we have one more question. We'll get into the news. What's up, Mr. Matty and ACG, long time, first time. Thank you, Kyle. Asking for your opinion about the new upcoming Fable game. The in-game engine that's being used for news articles I've read is that they will be using ForzaTech's engine. Are there any concerns from either of you about a car simulation game making a pseudo-open world action-adventure game? I'm sure the graphics will look amazing, the weather system, etc., but what about controlling a person? Just wondering. Thanks. I don't know about you. I don't put a lot of stock, if you will, into... I shouldn't say I don't. Like, you kind of know the tools and tricks of specific engines and what they do, but I always believe they're just tool sets, and I know they're tool sets, and it's about how far you can use them, how far you can stretch them, and it's about the knowledge of the developer at the end of the day. So I don't typically get worried about specific engines. Like, I see so many people still roll their eyes when Bethesda's like, we're using the creation engine, but I look at every other RPG out there, and I'm like, no other RPG is as interactable as a Bethesda Game Studios game. So to me, it's good. Like, I'm glad they're doing that. but I know everyone's different, right? They hear bugs and everything, so they all come with their own caveats, but I don't put a lot of stock into like, here's what you can expect now because of this engine. What do you make of that? I know you're on the more technologically knowledgeable side of things, so maybe you can provide some further clarity for Kyle.
I will. About Bethesda, I am one of those people that's like, fuck, here we go again. But at the same time, you're one of the ones who reminded me. Once I came on the show, you actually did remind me about, yeah, they're the most interactive, which is absolutely true. It's easy to forget because maybe you're interacting and the fucking game crashes.
And also has to do with mods, not to interrupt you, but
that's true too.
Is the modding capability of that engine.
Even in the normal one, you can grab most everything, right? Which is pretty crazy. Most, Witcher didn't come close to that. Any other game really. So, but with Forza, no, I have no issue. And I don't know if people know, but like Just Cause devs are who made Biomutant. And it's funny that all these questions come at the same time because when Just Cause 1 came out for Xbox Original and 360, I was telling everybody, man, I wish the Just Cause devs would make an RPG because Just Cause had this lush graphics, huge draw distance, massive location, and yet it was all about Rico just shooting shit. Right. And to me, Forza is a perfect engine for this. Forza already tracks a shit ton of stuff anyway, which, alterations to your car, all kinds of stuff. So I'm not too worried about it. I get what he means. I mean, it'll just depend. But if you want to know what it may look like, grab the snowy one. What was it? Forza 3. I can't remember what the DLC is, but it's where Snowy Peak or whatever. And drive 2 miles an hour. And imagine that being an RPG. And even back then, that's pretty fucking stellar graphically. So it'll be fun to see.
It's going to look good. There's no doubt.
Yeah, it'll be fun to see.
That's like the one thing you can say.
The other stuff we have to worry about is just if it'll be good. Like that's the only one I would say, Matty, is a Frostbite engine did seem to cause a huge number of issues.
Yes, it's a really good point.
Yeah, and I can't jump into that because I didn't track it because I believed it. When everybody said it, I was like, all right, there's smoke fire kind of thing. Obviously, there's something going on. But I think people would agree that of all the engines, that one had something going on that caused issues.
Yeah, it definitely did. Like when I played the Trespasser DLC, there was to access conversations with certain characters. I don't know did you play Trespasser for Dragon Age Inquisition?
Oh, dude, there's a game called Trespasser where a dragon game in like the 1990s, and I'm like, the fuck? Anyway, yes, I did. I apologize. I know what you're talking about now. Okay,
there's this like floating glowing orbs for those who haven't played it that you can interact with, and it'll say like, now you can talk with Sarah because you click that, and it's really weird, and apparently those are like workarounds because of Frostbite. We've heard the horror stories of like baking stuff into the engine, like lighting, and it'll take a full day. And it's why EA needs to just stop having BioWare make RPGs in there, because when you play Mass Effect, Unreal Engine 3, and then you look at what's happening with DragonAge, it's clear, that there's something hard there. We'll see how ForzaTech functions in that way. I think Frostbite's a good perspective, but yeah, for sure. Right now, we can pretty much imagine it's going to look great, and beyond that, we just have to hope that I'm just crossing my fingers that they take the moral stuff seriously, man. I really hope they don't get rid of that. That's like the best part of Fable is like the good guy, bad guy. I know there's not nuance there, right? Like Andromeda tried it. Like we want your decisions to be ambiguous and you decide if they're good or bad. It's like, I think it's sometimes better when the game tells you if it's good or bad now after playing Andromeda and then going back to Mass Effect and even seeing Biomutant do it. I think there's something good about letting you know when you've made a good or evil choice. And so I'm just hoping that they don't try to get rid of that. Because, I think it can just hurt the game just based off what it was built on. Last question. Surf the Void. Greetings, G27. The G stands for Gobbler and the man of many names. With the focus of Sony being turned to blockbuster titles and having huge pops rather than Xbox's many smaller games, what do you think will be the better path in comparison with each other? Will Ratchet and Horizon getting, say, Universal 9 or 10 be more important and beneficial compared to Xbox's plan of smaller games from many developers that are more likely not going to reach the same heights? Quality or quantity? Thanks, Dukers. Keep up the great work and have a day if you'd like.
Does he mean better for whom?
That's what I was going to say, is because I think, like, let's say I think Xbox is going to make more quality games. I think it's very apparent this is something they need to address. If they actually do that, we'll see. But I think they're going to shoot a little bit higher than they did for the Xbox One generation. With that in mind, though, it's clear that they want a quantity approach because that's what Game Pass is about, is like those consistent additions to the service. So, it will benefit that side of the consumer base where PlayStation... Yeah, I think what's going to happen is you're going to start to see Xbox Series X kind of be that third-party machine where PlayStation will be the exclusive machine for many people. And that's not a bad thing at all because that's what I've been suggesting since before this generation started. Get Game Pass and go get a PS5, call it a day. You'll have everything you need at that point for both parties as far as I am concerned. But with you, do you think it's better to just take that, big beat approach of here's a Ratchet and then maybe in the fall... We're going to see Horizon later this week, and that'll be exciting. Do we see Horizon being another big beat, and that's the better way to go? I think just
I don't think the report was true
about
about Sony. Yeah.
Oh, about
I think whoever wrote
blockbusters.
Yeah, I think whoever wrote it's a liar or doesn't understand what the fuck they're talking about.
I think it was Jason Schreier.
Yeah. Well, there you go. Fact is, you can't, dude. Sony, we already know. I know we'll see them. There are smaller titles for sure being planned by Sony. So at some point, once again, we get outside groups stating something like, "Oh, they're only going for third party or for first party huge games." Well, guess what? We for sure know they're not. So where do we go from? Where's this discussion even go other than to just say somebody's either really mistaken or they're a liar? And I'm not saying he's a liar. I'm saying whoever told him that might be. Because he's reporting. He doesn't make it up. He would get in trouble for that. What I'm saying is that whoever told him that, dude, it doesn't make any sense. Microsoft has never wanted to make shit games. But they didn't do very well. That's just it. But people are pretending like Microsoft was doing shit games on purpose. Like they wanted to release State of Decay, the way it was it's so fucking stupid. You'll get people being like, well, now that Microsoft is gonna try, it's like, what are you fucking talking about, man? That's legitimately stupid thought process. That it's not that they're going to try, it's that they're maybe putting in plans to, do you adjust resources? Do you share resources amongst? Do you get Bethesda to maybe help, with some of these different things, blah, blah, blah. Do you have those? But at no time is Sony gonna stop doing these smaller games, and at no time is Microsoft, or at no time has Microsoft ever not wanted to make a big blockbuster. Microsoft would have killed for Days Gone. They would have killed. They would have slaughtered babies for Days Gone. Even though it wasn't the greatest game in the world, that quality is still better than, State of Decay.
I think. See, I don't want to say I disagree with you. I think there is a fairness to question the dedication, if you will, of Xbox during that gen, because Phil literally had to convince Satya Nadella that how are we give me a reason why we should keep this around, right? So I have to wonder if internally with that going on, if everyone was really putting their best foot forward. With this generation, you definitely feel a particular hunger, and that's kind of the beauty of PR and marketing, right? They're creating that message more and more, so there is that in effect there. But I do think that it is fair to suggest that I don't want to say Xbox is trying harder now, but I think now that they know it's game on and that they have the more backing of Microsoft, Microsoft's actually saying here's a check, go get Bethesda, here's a check, they're probably going to go get someone else. We've heard a lot of interesting rumors. I feel like that kind of backing is what they were missing. That wasn't there really during the one generation, but was there during the 360. Do you know what I'm saying? Because I feel that way personally.
That's there. You hear it. But that has absolutely nothing to do with the person who's on the fucking production line making a texture.
Yeah,
that person is always trying to make the best texture ever. And so the idea, it's far-fetched. It's far-fetched. It does not jive with me. And it doesn't jive with anybody I've ever talked to in development where they're like, yeah, no one cares. Now, we have had particular games where people are like, we're going free to play. So maybe we're changing what we're delivering or blah, blah, blah. That's not the way it was. State of Decay, multiple Xbox games, even like Insomniac with Sunset Overdrive. It's not like they were like, we'll throw out a B level. I agree.
I just think there's a big difference between that mid-gen Xbox One and the early gen. Like, early gen was good. I actually thought their first year was pretty strong with Ori and all that, and as well as I thought Rise was good. I thought Dead Rising 3 was a good get. I thought they had a lot of good stuff in the early going. It's like as they got further into the gen, you felt them sort of like losing that drive. Sunset Overdrive, the game you just brought up, was another great example within that first year and a half window or so, where I was like, yes, like these are good games, but it's just so few.
But those are
after.
Built in 3 years.
Mm.
So that whatever you may feel is a response of 3 years ago, which is the same take that people have for politics, where they're like, something happens tomorrow, and they're like, everything that we did today changed tomorrow. Not at all. Not true at all. It takes many, many months, if not years, for those to change. So while I'm not disagreeing with you that at some point there's been ebbs and flows for all these companies, what my disagreement is that magically Sony's going away and Microsoft is going towards something that either one of them is just like offsetting what they used to do. It's not happening. And nobody I've talked to has ever said that's for sure what's going on. I do get that like Jim wants AAA. He's the person who runs things, and we definitely know that. He stated it. Stated the same thing about BC, but guess what? What happens? Boost comes along. They are doing backwards compatible. So even though he has stated stuff, even stuff I've burned him on and been like, dude, he's the one who said this, they have also turned around and changed things and added things. I don't necessarily feel like either company thinks that they can get away with just dropping a certain type of game. It just makes... Nintendo does, though. So
yes.
That's sort of every time we talk about... Well, that's why you can't bring Nintendo into almost any of these conversations anymore, because whatever's going on over there, and I say over there as in the stupid part of the planet that doesn't exist around my small circle, I don't know what's going on. Nintendo does that weird shit, so I guess all my arguments moot if you bring up Nintendo, because they will just walk away.
Sell you fast travel for $25.
Is that the amiibo thing? Yeah, so man, I don't know. I just think that there's some miscommunications or lies when we're saying that these guys are going away from, especially Sony. You know me, I'm not a huge Sony fan. Why am I fucking defending them? But I still feel like I need to defend the truth a little bit, and these
always
weird things that pop up that always seem so disingenuous.
I do think this can stem a little bit back to Schreier's reporting, in a sense of a lot of people treat it like gospel, like it is like the word for years, like nothing changes, nothing adjusts, nothing shifts. And I do think that's you can only work with the information you have, so no one's really wrong about that. But I do think there's no consideration for the mobility, if you will, of like, well, now if PlayStation drops like a Concrete Genie type game again,
exactly,
what happens to that reporting, right? Like, do you still believe it fully?
Well, that's the Days Gone thing that happened, right? Because didn't Days Gone, like one person said it wasn't ever being made, and the other person was like, what are you fucking talking about? We were like talking to Sony about it. And I don't even remember who's who in these issues. But the thing is you only have a certain number of people you can talk to. You and I have this with sources. And
yeah,
it doesn't matter. Long story short, I just think it's fucking ignorant to like assume that these companies are magically wanting to succeed or magically wanting to cut their entire library of one type of thing. I think it's misheard or misrepresented versus these hard, clear cuts. Almost like what you said, where it's like it's a line in the sand because somebody said so. And it's like, not quite sure that pays off.
Yeah, there's always adjustments occurring behind the scenes that are worth keeping in mind. You've looked something up on the internet before, and you don't want people to know about it. All right, I'll go first. I've looked up a Knights of the Old Republic walkthrough or two, okay? I gotta know what's going on with my favorite game of all time. Make sure I covered every corner of it. And I know you're probably thinking, Matty, that's humiliating. Why don't you just use incognito mode? Make sure no one knows about that. Well, number one, I'm true to myself. You deserve to know this information. But number two is that that's really not going to hide things, no matter how many times I clear my browsing history. That's why even when I'm at home, I never go online without ExpressVPN. So it doesn't matter if you get your internet from Verizon or Comcast, someone local, I ISPs in the US can legally sell your information to ad companies. Now, what's the solution? Ad block, right? No, I'd be out of a job. You get ExpressVPN. It's an app that reroutes your internet connection through their secure servers so your ISP can't see the sites you visit. Protect your online activity today with the VPN rated #1 by CNET and Wired. Visit my exclusive link, expressvpn.com/Duke, and you can get an extra 3 months free on a 1-year package. That's expressvpn, expressvpn.com/Duke, expressvpn.com/Duke to learn more. All right, let's get into the news. We don't have much this week, but some really interesting topics nonetheless. First one, of course, Xbox E3 hype is starting to ramp up. Earlier, it was confirmed by Matt Booty that Xbox and Bethesda will be joining together for a showcase this year. Now, while Matt said in a few weeks, it was originally reported by Jeff Grubb that it would be happening June 13th on a Sunday. And that has now been confirmed. We'll get into that in a second. But in that same Matt Booty interview, he claimed Xbox Game Pass doesn't influence the development of their games and how they make them. He said that the original games in their first-party studios were impacted by COVID more than their sequels, which makes me think about the likes of Starfield, Perfect Dark, Fable. And he couldn't share information, of course, on acquisitions that were on the table, because I imagine if they show anything, that will be at E3. And even then, I don't know. I feel like we would have heard some mumbling already about that. But then again, they just kind of dropped Bethesda out of nowhere. But anyway, we're going to read the full post from the official Xbox news site about their June 13th showcase. And then we'll talk a little bit about what exactly we can expect there and what we're looking forward to and just the nature of this show in general, because it does change the future of both companies entirely and how they operate with their showcases. So this post comes from Aaron Greenberg, General Manager of Xbox Games Marketing. Today, we are thrilled to announce the Xbox and Bethesda Games Showcase will stream Sunday, June 13th at 10 a.m. Pacific Time. The show will be focused on games from Xbox Game Studios, Bethesda, and many game creators from our partners around the world. You've told us how excited you are about welcoming Bethesda into the Xbox family, so we know you're going to want a front row seat to the Xbox and Bethesda Game Showcase, a 90-minute show packed with everything you want to know about the epic gaming lineup coming out of this partnership, the incredible games coming this holiday, and upcoming releases on Xbox Game Pass Plus more. You're able to watch the Xbox and Bethesda Games Showcase in a variety of ways. Be sure to visit any of the links before the show starts, whether it be twitch.tv on Xbox, it's youtube.com/Xbox, twitter.com/Xbox, and facebook.com/Xbox. We miss being able to see our fans and celebrate in person, so we will be hosting a digital Xbox Fan Fest this year. Sign up as an Xbox Fan Fest fan at xbox.com/fanfest to learn more. Mark your calendars once more for Sunday, June 13th at 10 a.m. Pacific Time, and we'll see you there. Now, the number one thing that was being sent to me with this, I should say, there's two big things that were being sent to me when it came to Xbox's Game Showcase. Number one, they put key art with this. It's fucking sick. The bottom left corner, 100% Starfield. 100%. So if it was any question, if it was any doubt, I think it's pretty apparent they're going to be showing it here. That much seems obvious, right? That seems to be the big Bethesda game, because the top section is Halo, and then the bottom section looks like Starfield. The other thing that was worth pointing out is the wording of Aaron Greenberg, where he says, and I'm going to read it one more time, a 90-minute show packed with everything you want to know about the epic gaming lineup coming out of this partnership, okay? The incredible games coming to Xbox this holiday. A lot of people were excited about that second sentence. Games, plural, Xbox, holiday. Is there more than Halo? Some people are, I think, holding their breath for Starfield. I would not say do that, just based off what we're all hearing as things progress. Like Jason Schreier's reporting aside, just as time went on, people shifted their reporting to 2022. I would say this is more along the lines of third-party stuff, but before we start speculating and diving in, what do you think of a 90-minute show with Xbox and Bethesda together? Is this enough time? What do you expect in the terms of showing stuff for their partnership? What could that be? Is it going to be that elusive Fallout team that we dreamt up? You know, what do you think, Karak?
No, it won't be that, but it'd be nice.
I wish. All right, life would be good.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't give a shit about Halo anymore. Until we see it, running, and like I can get my excitement for Halo up. Starfield will be cool. I see some other guns on there, but a lot of it looks like Halo repeated multiple times and copy pasted right and left on the top. I can't tell if I'm going nuts, but that's what the picture looks like, is that it's a couple Master Chiefs. I'm looking at it a little far away. I could be wrong. So I would say I'm more interested in third-party stuff. Starfield, I don't know of anything else that I would expect from Bethesda, but I certainly would like to see stuff from any of the smaller studios. I'd like to see the stuff from the Mime game. I call it the Mime game every time.
Compulsion games. We happy few.
Yeah, I'd like to see if I'd like to see them pop up or something. I'm actually more interested in stuff that we haven't even speculated on, because Starfield, that'd be great to see that. Hopefully we do. But I would like to see some stuff from those other companies.
Yeah. I feel the same way, right? Because now we're seemingly more and more. That's what I had heard, but you want to scrap my reporting by all means. It's there in the key art, and not even that. It's been reported widely that Starfield will be at E3. So with that is pretty much a lock for most people and their expectations, unless something gets delayed. Then you look to other things, and what is your expectation on? Let's go through some of the studios that we've got there. Avowed, that's one that I think of a lot. Is it time to see? Not time. I don't think it is time. Do we see more though?
That's the Obsidian one?
The horribly named Obsidian game that you just don't like that title.
Fucking no, it doesn't. I can't remember anything about it because the title's fucking horrendous. So.
Pillars of Eternity, open world RPG, pretty much.
I mean, anything Pillars, I'm behind for sure.
I'm just the most elusive thing for me is how soon they want to show these games off, because that's why I told people, like, you could be excited, but keep your expectations realistic, because I think there's so many exciting games happening with Xbox, right? I don't have to name them all, but I will, just like Avowed, Fable, Perfect Dark. It's like those are the three I think of right away that are exciting but pretty far away. They decided to reveal Fable last year. Do we finally think it's time we see some gameplay for that this year?
That'd be very cool to see. In fact, I wish they would put, if this circle means anything, it would have been cool if maybe the green means that, but it would have been cool if they showed like a little field or something, so you get the idea that Fable was going to be shown. Because Fable, yeah, it'd be nice to see something.
Yeah, for those who haven't laid their eyes on the art, it's a top right. It's a full circle, and there's like throughout the first half of the circle is all these different sets of armor for Halo.
Is that what it is?
Throughout all of them, yeah. And then on the bottom left corner is the rest of this kind of galactic planet that is that same shot for those who paid close attention to Starfield, where you see like the light start to peer through and it creates a shape for the planet. It's that shot exactly on the bottom left corner. What's interesting about Halo is it starts with 2002, and you can see faintly the numbers crawling up into the armor. So I'm wondering if with some editing, people will find some hints in here. But anyway,
oh, that's what those are. I see. I was trying to figure out what those numbers are.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty bad. I mean, it's a pretty piss poor picture, because it's like it's got all this Halo stuff, and it's like, what does that even mean? There's a ton of games. If there's other games, I wish they had put some other stuff in there. So we get an idea of like.
My guess is like if you show armor for like even Starfield, let's say you show like what the player character would look like on the bottom left corner of that image where the Starfield stuff clearly is, you start to think to yourself, well, are we revealing too much?
No.
Is like
I mean, you said
thing,
that is
right?
Starfield, so I'm saying ignoring that's only 2 games.
Right. So I guess if you show like Fable, you create all these expectations. Like, do you think they just didn't?
But why didn't they show
away?
A field? Like at least make us guess, because a field could be Avowed or Fable, right? Or it could be Forza driving through a field, because Forza 4 definitely had that, the driving through fields and shit. Yeah, I don't know. It's a shit picture because it's just offset and it doesn't really show anything. I mean, I don't know what those years are. Are those, because those years can't be 2002 wasn't when the original Halo came out, was it? I thought the original Halo came out prior. No, it may not have been prior to that, because 1999's Dreamcast, right? So that makes sense. Maybe Halo was. So like, why is it all? So that's not even the right. Maybe the 2001 is behind the Xbox and Bethesda. Maybe 2001
that's what I'm thinking.
Like,
I don't see. I have a blown up version of it though, and let me zoom in. I didn't see that.
Either did I. So I don't know what that means. And if people think I'm dogging on Halo, I absolutely am. It looked like dog shit, and like I've had no support for Microsoft's shit dealing of Halo since Master Chief Collection. So this doesn't excite me because of that. Starfield's awesome, but other than that, we don't have anything except top right, fire, maybe, over something? Or is that also just Halo?
I think it's just Halo, yeah.
Well, it's like, what is that? Like, at that point, show a mime. Show me We Happy Few 2. We should have fucking had a mime up there. That would have been
collective,
awesome. It's not a it's not a collage. Exactly. It would have, yeah. I guess that's a better way of putting what
I
is
still think it
bothering
looks
me.
cool,
I don't get it.
Different from you.
I mean,
I do still think it looks cool.
What looks cool? The
art. The art, yeah. I do like it. There's something about it that's just it's colorful. I think that's really it.
Yeah. Okay.
You know what I think that is? Hold on. No, that's not it.
The green on the up left looks cool because it looks like original
That's what
Xbox.
I was looking at. I was like, are those like the rings for Xbox? I was like, maybe it's something to do with the... I don't know. I could speculate all day.
Dude, what if it's like we fixed Xbox backwards compat and everything works? What if it was like, that would be hilarious. Like, because it does look like, that's pretty much the rings of the 360 or the Xbox, or that is for sure the rings of one of the two, because the Xbox 360 did that too. But yeah, that'd be cool. I don't get much from that other than that. So far, except it's gonna sound weird if you look around the Xbox logo. It looks like, isn't that player 1 and 2? No, that's player 1 and 3 that are high. Because if you remember, the Xbox 360 would tell you which players were controlling by lighting up. And if you notice, 1 is up, 2 is gray, down is gray, left might be up. I don't know. Who knows? At this point, it's probably just shit happening.
There's just, I don't know.
So, I wish there was a mime, a field, a car. But at the same time, like you said, maybe they don't want to spoil anything. I would love to see Forza.
I don't think they want to spoil anything. I'd rather them do that, quite honestly. Because,
they just spoiled Starfield. So to me, it's like, if you're going to do Starfield, go all in. Show everything.
I feel like prior to any reports you or I got, any insider information that went out across the industry, I feel like it was seemingly being set up because with every like Xbox Bethesda press release, there was always like, what's going on with Starfield? Like, here's, like, they'd mentioned Starfield, and I don't know, but just the mentioning of it alone suggested it was closer to being shown than and that's just as someone who keeps their ear to the ground on Bethesda pretty often. It's been a major building block in my channel. Like, I just noticed that. I was like, that's strange. Like, that they're bringing it up. Like, it's going to be an important thing moving into the future for them. And that would likely be a big showing at E3. Big as in, like, they're revealing it. I don't know to the extent of what will be there. It'll likely just be a teaser. But
I mean, that doesn't make any sense when you have 55 versions of Master Chief up there. Because which one is supposed to matter? Infinity Master Chief or the jack-off from number 1?
I will say this then, is with Bethesda, kind of as a devil's advocate, what would you rather them have there for Bethesda, right? Because
all of Bethesda games.
All of them, okay. Just keep it very generalized.
Well, they did all of Infinity, or they did all of Halo, is what I'm saying. This is Bethesda. So what I'm saying is, now they could be saying the bottom is all Infinity, or sorry, the bottom is all Starfield, and the top is all Halo. Except that would also be a lie, because the top left is some green rings. So what would be cool to me, if look at all the extra space used by all those other Master Chiefs, which so far I haven't been able to identify why they did that in the first place at all. So what would be cool, to me at least, is if they're going to do E3 and Bethesda, don't just focus on Starfield. There's got to be something else from all those companies. And that I would just like, because it's like, I think it's just a bad JPEG.
I don't know. The way I envision it, I don't think it's so horrendous. Just because the way I envision it is that you're gonna have Halo is the big Xbox thing, and you're gonna have Starfield as the big Bethesda thing, and so those are gonna be your two main draws.
Is that your 90 minutes?
No, definitely not. But those are definitely gonna be your two main draws.
If I was working at Bethesda, I'd be pissed. If I was working at Microsoft, I'd be pissed
for sure.
I'd be pissed. Whoever made this is a terrible person. By the way, I'm just slowly descending. Well, we can stop whenever. I haven't meant the last 10 things I've stated.
Stop you right now.
I'm just going off. They're horrible people. Whatever. No, it doesn't matter. This is what happens when we start getting so soft in what we think will happen. I just want it to fucking come so we can quit talking about it.
Right.
And just be done.
We'll have more.
That would be the best.
Guided speculation on specific games and wild dreams and all that shit next week. Let's talk about what Matt Booty had to say here, where he, like I said, sounded off on multiple topics in the interview. The first was that he claimed Xbox Game Pass doesn't influence the development of their games. Now, I said this in my video. I'm going to say it again. I don't believe this at all. When you look at Gears 4, 5, Horizon 4, and Sea of Thieves, all of them very clearly were driven by like some of those monetization decisions and the audience that they bring. And it's not a bad thing because like Forza Horizon 4, for example, is one of the most played Game Pass games. Same thing with Sea of Thieves. Like Sea of Thieves was saved by Game Pass. Like that was really the start of like the excitement of Game Pass where you went, wow, like you can get in and try something out that maybe you were a little unsure for 60, but you can have it here and it's much more enjoyable to because you're not doing that full $60 commitment. And since then they've added seasons in Sea of Thieves and you know, you have the operations for Gears 4 and 5, and I know 5 had pretty bad monetization at first. I know it's gotten better, but I know at first it was pretty aggressive. And then Horizon 4, I mean, my God, there's a lot in there too. So I feel like, personally, I don't really believe this. Not the development side of things, but I think there are creative choices that are made that keep Game Pass in mind. Because I would say it's foolish not to. Because in the case of a lot of game studios, Game Pass can literally pay your budget, right? Like I've talked to developers that are like, yeah, we put our game on Game Pass and it covered all of our costs for our game. And so if you have monetization in there, then it's only raw profit for your company at that point. But you frowned a little bit. I don't know if you agree as strongly.
Just on the microtransactions, I didn't remember. I remember a little bit about Forza, but Gears was so technically above and beyond what I thought it was going to be, Gears 5, with like 60 FPS and 4K, that I feel that goes against it being like Game Pass, just because a lot of times people consider Game Pass to be like getting away with something. So it feels like Gears 5 in particular was like nailing it. But Microsoft hasn't been the greatest with microtransactions in the past anyway. So I'm not 100% sure they're like if they're a ton worse or if I'm just remembering differently. I know one of the Forza regular games prior to Game Pass had really bad monetizations. I think it was Forza 6 or 7 maybe. The normal Forza, not the Horizon. So, but no, that was my frown, is just because I don't remember anything about those like popping up. At least with Gears 5, Forza has always had some, you know, but monetization, on the other hand, just so everybody knows, I actually don't see a huge connection between monetization and Game Pass either, because a lot of games are on Game Pass with no monetizations at all. They're just on Game Pass. So yeah, I don't know what the connection.
I don't think it's all of them, but I think when it occurs, it's pretty obvious.
But I think also since Game Pass, since these games were in development prior to Game Pass, I really can't say if I don't believe him, because some of those games were in development for 5 years. So it's like that was prior to Game Pass being a thing. So.
That's true.
That was prior to him being there.
I don't know how easily monetization gets slapped on. So
yeah, either do I. Or what it does change later. Like if you do find out you're going to do monetization, do you cut stuff, you know, which we've seen, or do you just say let's add stuff, which is the positive way? I don't know how long Booty's been there. I don't feel like Booty's been there a super long time. So it's like he may also just be speaking in that way where you can say, I am not aware of any legal issues, but it's really just because he just showed up. So maybe he's, he's probably talking out the side of his mouth.
Yeah, I'm on his LinkedIn. He's
I feel
been
like
there for
hasn't
5 years.
I should say in charge in that spot. Has he been in charge in that spot for 5? Well, yeah, because he probably replaced Phil, right? Or
Head
or
of
did
Xbox Game Studios since January 2018.
he? 3 years. Okay, not as long. But
And then head of Microsoft Studios at January 2018.
yeah, I don't know. Like he said something. Maybe he was lying. Maybe he wasn't. I mean,
Unimportant.
yeah, in the scheme of things, I think.
And then last bit to talk about with Matt Booty was that the first party studios were impacted by COVID were more so the original titles than the sequels, which I think just generally
Sequels
makes
of
a
what?
little bit more sense. Like I guess sequels of like say a new Gears game, like they've kind of confirmed they're working on a new Gears game. So like something like that would be less impacted.
Oh, okay. So, because how many sequels are there? Is he hinting that there's sequels we don't know about? Then
maybe I don't.
Gears
see, the thing
6.
is, like,
Is there a Gears 6? Because I haven't heard a word about Gears 6. Is there a Gears 6? And I just let it pass
well,
me.
there was
Maddie?
the Unreal Engine 5 thing for Coalition, and I know they said Gears and
Oh, they
Unreal.
did. Are moving, right? Moving. Yeah, you're right. You're right.
I imagine that meant the sequel, and then maybe Psychonauts 2. I know that's not
Forza.
exclusive. Forza, Horizon 5.
He could have easily. Yeah,
100%.
and remember, Forza, the standard Forza, it sounds like they wanted to make some fairly heavy shifts in that, which I don't know what those shifts are. That could have absolutely be why we haven't heard of the standalone Forza either. So that makes sense.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And it could
That makes
explain
more
why
sense
we're
now.
hearing late 2022 for Starfield as well, just to throw that out there. Why the expectation from Microsoft side of things and Bethesda seem to be so wildly different could be because of what Matt Booty's saying here. But regardless of whatever you're making, it's been impacted by COVID. So it's sort of...
Exactly. Like everything has, right?
Yeah.
You and I have been impacted, even if we directly weren't. There's some editor who said, I can't work today because I got to go get my shot. Well, you had yours, remember? And you're like, I can't do a podcast. So at minimum, everybody's been affected a little bit, if not a ton.
Yeah. Next story is from Ars Technica. They have an exclusive report saying that Valve is making a Switch-like portable gaming PC. We can confirm some, but not all of what's in store for codename SteamPal. We talked about this
I'm
random...
sorry, it's the dumbest name. Anyway, continue. I'm sorry.
man. Well, it's just interesting because we were talking about how Gabe Newell was caught in like a university just like answering a random question, just like out in the middle of nowhere, and now here's a report coming in about what's going on with Valve's hardware, because he said, for those who didn't catch that episode, that we would know sometime this year what exactly that looks like with Valve on consoles.
Maybe his console is what he meant.
Yeah, here's the plan. Yeah. Video game and hardware studio Valve has been secretly building a Switch-like portable PC designed to run a large number of games on the Steam PC platform via Linux and could launch supply chain willing by year's end. Multiple sources familiar with the matter have confirmed that the hardware has been in development for some time, and this week Valve itself pointed to the device by slipping new hardware-related code into the latest version of Steam, the company's popular PC gaming storefront and ecosystem. On Tuesday, the Steam beta-based operator Pavel Djundik, sorry if I said that wrong, spotted the change in Steam's code, which pointed to a new device named SteamPal. The name is a derivative of a previously discovered code term, Neptune, which is a better name, right? Which began appearing in September of last year and came with a Neptune-optimized games string. At the time, curious code crawlers thought this discovery referred to some type of controller. Technically, that's true. The SteamPal, whose name we're putting in scare quotes because we do not have confirmation of the device's final name, is an all-in-one PC with gamepad controls and a touchscreen. In other words, it looks and functions like a Nintendo Switch, albeit without the removable Joy-Con functionality. This device is very likely the subject of an announcement Valve co-founder Gabe Newell hinted at in a panel edit. It was a New Zealand school. I couldn't even find it in the Reddit post. It was a New Zealand school. Yeah, he picked the most
far out fucking place to go.
Wow.
Awesome.
Wow. Oh my gosh. So in early 2020, we did see Alienware they're kind of Switch-like gaming PC, but it hasn't turned into a commercial product. They say the SteamPal will go a similar route to that with a system on a chip, likely coming from either Intel or AMD, not NVIDIA. The aforementioned Switch-like PC manufacturers that leaned on both AMD and Intel for their products. It's unclear, whether Valve will release multiple SKUs to offer customers a choice of power level, battery life, and other specs, as other Switch-like PCs have offered in the past year. At least one Steam Pal prototype version is quite wide compared to the Nintendo Switch. This extra wide accommodates a slew of control options. No, Valve is likely not slapping an entire QWERTY keyboard onto its system, but the company has packed in a standard array of gamepad buttons and triggers, along with a pair of joysticks and at least one thumb-sized touchpad, in addition to the device's touch-sensitive screen. The Steam Pal's touchpad is likely smaller than the pair of touchpads that came standard on every Steam controller. Nearing the end here, sorry, I know this is a long read, but pretty exciting stuff. The Steam Pal is still in prototype stages, and its features are subject to change, as we've seen with other prototype hardware for other Valve initiatives like Steam VR and Steam Controller. In other words, while I'm pretty confident that the Steam Pal will include a D-pad, I can't say for sure. This also means I don't have details on crucial hardware aspects like battery size, screen size, pixel resolution, memory, and storage capacity. The Steam Pal's Switch-like properties will include the option to dock to larger monitors via its USB-C type port, but I don't have firm details on exactly how that connection will work or whether Valve has other plans for an eventual Steam Pal dock. Lastly, the Steam Pal was built with Linux as a likely target, an idea that aligns with Valve's continued push to make its entire catalog compatible with open source OS, particularly the Steam Proton. That in no way means Valve's increasingly cozy relationship with Microsoft could result in a deal to get Windows onto Steam Pal, though it would not be surprising to see Valve skip the per-device Windows license and tell users that the Steam Pal is open enough for them to customize like any other PC. There's no idea what it may cost. They're suggesting that it could be around $300, but they can confirm the existence and development and can point to Newell's very loud hints that something console-related will be announced later this year. That was a bit of a mouthful. I apologize, but I think it's really exciting. What do you think of Valve getting into the console space in their own way? When we were speculating, we were thinking about, like, what would they be doing? I don't know. Like, it's one of those stories where we go, like, wow, why didn't I think of that, right? So I didn't think, what if Valve just did their own thing? We were thinking, like, maybe they're going to hop on Xbox with an app and stream, right, or PlayStation with an app and stream, Nintendo Switch. Now we're seeing them look to do their own thing. What exactly does this excite you at all? Because the article didn't mention like streaming or anything, but what do you think of this PC-like handheld that they're doing?
I think it interests me a lot less if that price point is even close to right, because the GPW, I think is what it's called, which is the current Windows that you can get. You can get like a Windows machine and a handheld that they have, is already pretty high, and it's not super powerful. So I don't know if I would trade out streaming for fairly weak hardware.
Okay.
At that point, I'd be like, why? I might as well just... And now, on the other hand, it'll stream, I'm sure, by the way. I would be blown away if they didn't say you can stream from your PC if you want to. It would only make sense to be able... Yeah. Because it's Steam. Like, that's the way it should be. But hardware-wise, I'm not super... streaming has replaced a lot of my hardware stuff, man. And a lot of people don't travel anymore at all. So it's like, and I wouldn't want to stream, anyway. I would want to play those hardware games if I was going somewhere. I'm just trying to figure out how much I would use it. So I would say, like, my interest level's higher than it was with the console thing we couldn't figure out. We were like, what the fuck does he mean it's on console? But if it's on their console, pretty cool. Just depends on how powerful it is. I mean, dude, I have a Intel with a IGP, integrated graphics processor. And, I'd never play a bunch of games with it. But, dude, it'll do OBS. It'll record 60 FPS. It'll stream. And those are things that are nice because it pulls all that off of, like, your video card or whatever. Intel's been trying to do because he even said, it might be Intel, it might be AMD. There's some pretty powerful little, integrated graphics. Even my wife, I think I bought her an AMD, I think it was like a 3200, and its internal, like, GPU is been running games and stuff forever. Like there's no video card in her system. I don't know cost-wise how that works out, but still, there's some powerful handheld stuff or possible handheld stuff that's out there. It'd be fun to see.
Yeah, as a handheld gamer, like I'm all over this. I'm excited about it. It's really just about that price point and the practicality of it. It's like, is this going to be worth owning? Is there just going to be kind of like a companion device? And at that point, the price becomes even more important. But for me, I am oftentimes just sold on the novelty of handheld, so it immediately has my attention. I'm going to look forward to seeing whatever this is, especially because, as a big Vita fan, powerful games on the go is in my DNA. So I'm looking forward to it, but I don't have much to add on other than what you said really about price.
Yeah, and he said all the stuff we needed to know. He or they don't know. So it's like, all right, we'll have to wait then. Yeah, that's going to matter the most, right?
Yeah. Games with gold time.
Got to mention one more thing. Emulators. So if it's open, which I'm sure Steam will allow, then and I know most people who have that GP, somebody can correct me on what the term is, but it's like WinGP or something like that, but it's this handheld that's a PC. They already run emulators on that. If Steam is doing their own thing, making sure it all runs well, plus it's open, then I could see this also being used as an emulator machine, which then there is
that would be
like what if behind the scenes they were verifying that like PS2 games worked perfectly on it or whatever, then even though it's not, you never would say that because it's considered not the proper thing to do, but at the same time that emulation is probably one of the first things people are going to look at for a system like that.
Oh god, yeah, if it's open,
which could be cool. Yeah,
that'd be amazing.
Yeah, that could be that would actually to me be probably more interesting than playing a normal game. Right, because I'd probably go to my PC for that or stream it if it's really highfalutin. But like for fucking emulation,
I mean,
if
that's
you
really
threw some PS2,
missing. Yeah, that's what's missing because like the PCSX2 or whatever it's called, or PSX2.
That's the one I was talking about. Yeah,
you take that and there are some games that there are YouTubers who will emulate the game and get it just right where it can run at like 1440p 60 and it looks awesome. And it's like if you could get that and then put it on a portable screen, like that changes things. Like that's what's missing, right? People have always like I've looked them up online, like makeshift PS2 portable devices, makeshift GameCube portable devices where people like are detaching parts of the old console and putting it on and creating their own thing. And it's phenomenal to watch. But like if you could just do that, that would be huge for the emulation scene.
You know what this might be, Matty? It just dawned on me.
What?
Remember everybody was saying Nintendo Pro, which, by the way, I was told there was Nintendo Switch Pro. But there was a big question about DLSS because there were some hints about that. If this handheld was like, in some way, they figured out a way to make sure that you've got good anti-aliasing and stuff, which steps it above the Switch, then you are talking about a system that's highly interesting. Because DLSS, and he already DLSS, no. They stated they're not going with AMD, or they're not going with NVIDIA. Intel doesn't have a DLSS competitor. AMD's is really behind. So scratch that. Shoot. So that would not be happening. That's too bad.
Yeah.
That's too bad.
Yeah, man, that sucks, but that would be, at least on the emulation front, this could be still really cool.
Yeah, on the emulation front, that's pretty cool. What if, we know Switch is, I don't know if you may not know this, whatever, but Switch, the emulators are out there, and I've seen people streaming it consistently where I know that's not the Switch game. Like,
because it's running better?
Dude, I've seen Legend of Zelda where shit's going on. I'm like, that ain't Legend of Zelda.
It's like 60 FPS, and I'm like,
yeah.
Come on,
it's 60
man.
FPS and, like, weapons don't degrade, which, by the way, is, like, my number one hate for that game. And people are playing a game, and I'm like, weapons are... If like, Valve was, like, aiming at a powerful enough system to emulate the Switch, that's eating some lunch. That's eating somebody else's lunch. That'd be very interesting.
Because then people are gonna just buy that and be like, "This is my Switch and my PC and my PS2."
Yeah, I mean,
damn,
I would.
I would too, right? I think if it's open, that catches my ear a little bit more. Really exciting though. I think this is more exciting than them just creating an app, because it wouldn't have made sense. Now that we say, like, this is what perspective's all about, right? Because like now if they when we look at it, it's like, why would they have put an app on, say, Xbox's console when they're Xbox is doing cloud streaming?
Yeah, it didn't even when we were talking about it. This is the only thing that does actually make sense. So
right. So looking forward to learning more. I'm sure that'll be a couple months out, but Curious to see what they do, and we will be sure to keep everyone updated when we hear more. For now, games with gold for those who want to still suffer. So most of these I haven't heard of, so I only kid because I can't speak as authoritatively. June 1st to the 30th, you can get King's Bird. June 15th to July 15th. What?
King's Bird is amazing.
Okay.
That's my indie. That's my game of the year, actually, from like 2 years ago or whatever. That King's Bird is fucking phenomenal. So sorry, I just had to interrupt.
Beautiful.
It dawned on me that's the name you were talking. That game is well worth getting if you are listening right now. Sorry. Continue.
Okay, that's excellent to hear because we have in our 21 show episode history, we have not had that with Games of Gold. Yeah. Shadows Awakening is June 16th to July 15th. Neo Geo Battle Coliseum, Xbox 360 game, June 1st to June 15th. And Injustice Gods Among Us, Xbox 360, June 16th to June 30th. Did they have a PS4 version of this game? Or
They did. I don't think, no. And that's so, it's funny you mention that because people in one of the Discords were like, I love Injustice 1 and 2, and we were talking about the differences, blah, blah, blah. It is only prior, from what I understand. So this is the only version they could give.
Really?
Yeah.
I believe.
So
interesting.
Yeah. So, and well worth it, by the way, people. Is there?
Ultimate Edition. PS4.
Well, this is Xbox, though.
I know. I'm just it's on Xbox as well, but
okay. Just making sure because Sony's had a couple fighters in particular just be for them.
I was gonna say I could have sworn there was one. Yeah, Injustice: Gods Among Us Ultimate Edition. Yeah, this is Xbox One as well for those who are wondering.
Okay. If you haven't played Injustice, people play it. It's a very good game.
I love the first one so much, man. I love the first one. I didn't like the second one as much. The second one's still great. But technically, the second one's a better game. Just the first one, there's so many memories attached to it. And I love the story for the first one. I do think that's better in the sequel. But overall, I think you like the second one more, if I'm not mistaken, because of the multiverse and the equipment. And you played it
it's pretty hard to
remember.
I don't even know how other games are like gonna combat the amount of just content that's in the second one. Like when they come out, you're just like, it's not as cool as having every planet and comic book stuff. But yeah, I mean they're good regardless, 1 or 2. They're better than the prior DC versus Mortal Kombat or whatever. And they're the best superhero games. Well, maybe Capcom, the old ones, people may have liked, but I think these are amazing.
Karak, I'm going to give us a round of applause because we did it, man. Got through a whole Games with Gold section. We actually talked about the games. We actually talked about the fucking games. I think we know
most of those. I don't know God damn, I'm tired. I don't know the Neo Geo one, though.
That's so funny because you're yawning up a storm, but dude, you've been drinking fucking soda this whole show.
Yeah, but only 1 and I'm out. I usually would get 2 down. Yeah. Oh, dude, yeah, to caffeine for sure. Yeah, that shit takes a while. But yeah, we did. We talked Neo Geo, and then the other one, I didn't recognize. But King's Bird's awesome. Injustice is awesome. So
wait, holy shit! You've got a Monster Energy drink as well?
It's empty. I already drank it. I'm gonna have to get up and go grab something. I've already drank like 3 of these.
Well, if you need to, go ahead because we're gonna start the next topic.
And then I'll be right back. Yeah, let me just grab something.
Go urinate, dude. Take care of yourself.
Nope, have to get a pop.
Yeah, all right. You do what you got to do. All right, next bit of news. This is about Xbox's DRM issues that are continuing on. I covered this in my video as well. I thought the response was interesting because a lot of people got where I was coming from, but there were also a lot of people who went, Steam has DRM. We're not talking about that, which is fair, but I do think a little bit of what about there where I don't know if it's a big deal to ask Xbox to say, hey, can I please put my disc in my console and it can work no matter what. So we've got an article here from purexbox.com as I punch my mic and almost eat it in the process. The write-up is about Modern Vintage Gamer who made a video talking about pretty much what's going on with this DRM issue, reporting it as a serious problem because the video in question has now prompted one Xbox developer to come forward and shed some light on the issues at hand. And so I talked about this as well on my channel, really about both PS5 and Xbox Series X. I focused on the CMOS battery problem for PlayStation 5, which was like a ticking time bomb. And then it's funny because a lot of Xbox fans were really like in the PlayStation fans' faces going like, yeah, our game system's better than yours. And then Xbox has an arguably worse issue in a number of ways because it's a pretty big hurdle for them to climb over. So we're going to read PureXbox.com's article. Be sure to check all these articles that we're citing out. I apologize. I wasn't able to get to my full write-ups this week for the news just because I had, you might see around my neck, I had a heart appointment. So that kind of got in the way of my usual scripting
They checked
time.
to see if he had one. Negative. The results were no.
I'm a piece of shit.
Does Matty have a heart? Results came in negative. We're good to go.
No, they were like, you told your friend to die on the operating table as a joke. You're fucking heartless.
Oh, man.
All right. In this video, MVG highlights that the Xbox Series X in particular has a heavy-handed DRM measure in place that makes using the console offline more difficult than ever, explaining that Xbox One and Smart Delivery disc-based games don't always run if you're offline, typically due to requesting some type of initial install or update. He also highlights that the Xbox Series X, like the Series S and Xbox One, requires an internet connection in order to set up the console for the first time, which in theory would render unused consoles useless once Xbox Live is eventually shut down in the distant future. And so that sort of thing that's happening here is it's really that it's a problem that's been brought up through a great feature for Xbox called Smart Delivery. So it is a bigger hurdle for them to climb over. What's interesting is over on the Reset Era forums, one Xbox developer by the name of Oscar K had responded to the video in question. In his lengthy response, Oscar K states that the main takeaway from the video is Xbox needs to improve its on-console error messaging. He says, having watched the video and read through the discussion here, my main takeaway is that we, Xbox, need to improve our on-console error messaging. That very generic and unclear error messaging clearly adds confusion and can lead to mistrust of the system. There is actually an effort internally to revamp licensing-related error messaging, and I will ensure that this feedback is heard internally to continue driving that effort. He also mentions smart delivery discs vary in content for a variety of reasons. Discs like Forza Horizon 4 were pressed years before the Series X and S existed. Kind of something that you were touching on earlier, Karak, about Game Pass. Repressing discs is expensive, and it doesn't actually help anyone since it would require the user to repurchase anyway. Discs like FIFA 21 were pressed with a stub of the Xbox Series X/S version, as that version simply was not ready for the time that discs were pressed. Discs may not be able to contain both versions of the game for space reasons. Which versions are pressed is up to the developer, but I would expect that it will generally line up with whichever was the primary version developed for. For now, cross-gen titles are primarily targeting Xbox One, but that will change over time. Very interesting issue here. We have a write-in from Dr. Stump. That name may sound familiar. He says, Guten Tag, amigos. This is a follow-up to my Brian McCaffrey or Brian McGafferty or Brian McCrappery or however you say his name critique from last week. I've been following and listening to Karak for a long time. That was just the reaction I was hoping for. So thank you, Karak. Anyway, what are your thoughts on the recent news about Xbox's Series X DRM findings? Seems like the always online thing proposed during the Xbox One reveal actually is true. Great show as always, and have a dope-ass weekend. I think the reason this is becoming an easier pill for people to swallow is because Xbox was ahead of the curve on that, where people are already kind of adjusted to how things are. But I want to pass this off to you because I've done a lot of reading there. What do you make of what's happening, transpiring with Xbox DRM, the ability to not play certain games offline, the checking in of some type of code for smart delivery interfering there? Do you think this is something that Xbox needs to amend? They need to get on and immediately be proactive so that if servers shut down, if things change, game discs aren't rendered useless? Where do you stand on all of that?
I'm going to be honest. I play mine offline quite a bit because I go on my trip at least 2 or 3 times a year, and I've never had any errors as long as you make sure that you're connected once. So I don't know what they're actually talking about.
I think the idea is you buy it and you don't need that first time connection to establish it.
Oh no, that means nothing. I've expected that 100%, and it sucks. I see. Yeah, yeah, it sucks. It sucks. And Sony does it, by the way, too. So I don't know if they're pretending that Sony doesn't do it, but that's definitely a thing with the consoles versus, say, the Switch, which I don't think other than downloading it because I need space, but if you go and buy, I think there's 1 or 2 games that if you buy, they download, but I could even be wrong on that, now that I think about it, on the Switch. Yeah, Yeah, because I
Switch
wasn't
has it as
connected to
well,
my
yeah.
network. But I mean, I wasn't connected to my network for most of my games. Were you? So I don't think Switch has asked me if I'm...
I've had one thing that's interesting. This has only happened with PlayStation, and so maybe someone can tap into what's happening here. But I went to Lake George to go on a golfing trip. I brought my PS4 with me because my brother and I love Shenmue, so it came out that weekend. So we were playing it connected to a hotspot on my phone, and it was a digital game. And as I couldn't access my digital games because there was like a lock symbol when I was offline, so that's why we needed the hotspot set up. And then when it was set up, if the connection was lost, it would tell me I had like 15 minutes to re-verify my license, or else the system would shut down the application. And so I don't know if that's similar to maybe what you're asking.
Yeah, it's fair to say.
I think it was that.
I think it's 48 hours for the Xbox, because I've been gone for an entire weekend and played games on my Xbox and without any internet. We talked about this about 3 or 4 podcasts ago, because I do take that trip. But yeah, it sucks. I mean, it sucks, but that's life. Like for Steam, I don't know if it's fixed. Steam has an offline mode. So
yes.
Right? Well, guess what? In the old days, I don't know if it still does this, the only way to go into offline mode was to be online and tell it you wanted to go to offline mode. It was like, and I was bitching, and people were like, fuck you, man. You know, you should just count yourself lucky. And I was like, well, it still sucks, right? Because what if my internet goes down? I don't have the chance to go back in time and say I want it to be offline. It's probably fixed now, but that was every game, by the way. That wasn't just like some of my games. It was like, if that happened, whatever setup didn't work. So yeah, it sucks. It sucks. But I mean, I'm not going to lose sleep over it. I think it sucks anytime something will go away and then you'll lose access to it. And so that's all I need to say is it sucks. I mean, I'm not going to waste a bunch of time saying how much it does. It just sucks. We don't want it. It's happened to me. Online game or, you know, I'm trying to remember one, but there's definitely been games where I'm like, I want to play it and it's just gone. And you're like, oh,
Meg
okay.
On the PS3.
Meg on the PS3. I mean, and I'm sure I know we've talked about this because there's definitely games where this has happened to me, so it sucks. But I think right now what you have is people searching for issues too. And I'm not saying to cause an issue. I'm saying because it's a high point right now. Outriders, I think, also caused a lot of this, because I knew a lot of the people in my Discord were kicked off of Outriders, and then they were like, hey, guess what, this other game does it too. And then that focuses people to go, well, what else does this? Like, what else has a sign-in server? Admittedly, Outriders, we all expected that. But it just brings it to the fore, and then people start checking more and more and more. And good on them. Good on them. It sucks.
Yeah. I personally don't have much more to add other than that.
Anybody listening, I'd love to hear what you think about the Switch. Not what you think, I'm sorry. I would love to hear if you've had experiences, because I don't know what the Switch does. And I'm assuming, since Nintendo's so bad with the internet, that most games don't require it. But I could be wrong.
I will say that when I went on a vacation with my girlfriend, I know we had internet. I did not have my Switch connected to the internet, as far as I can remember. Might be remembering wrong, but this is where the audience could write in and kind of verify probably my memory with this. But this was the week I grinded Dragon Quest Builders 2 every night.
And so that worked.
Hours and hours on Switch, and that did work, and that was digital. So I know Nintendo has some type of problem with some games, but
do they?
It would be great if someone from the audience could write in if they know something about this, and we'll throw you in the front of the show.
Yeah, even if it's a particular game, I'd like to know. Dude, while I went out there, the reason why I'm sort of scatterbrained, I went out there, my dog's got a 25-pound bag of dog food and ate it all. Between 5 dogs, that's 5 pounds. But my little puppy, his belly, he's like laying on, he's fine, by the way. He's already puked twice. It's gone. But his belly's just tight. And I'm like, dude, and he's like, looks up at me, and there's food everywhere on the floor, because that's how much they ate. They stopped eating it, which indicates a dog is really full. If they say, yeah. Fucking animals.
Dude.
I'll keep an eye on
animals. Yeah, by all means, step away if you ever need to.
Yeah, I just want to make sure people don't think I would ignore that.
Yeah. Last bit of news, just quickly wanted to note, Wasteland 3's Battle of Steeltown comes out very soon, and there was a new trailer that just was a general overview of the location. your quest, and what you'll be doing there and what purpose this part of the world serves. And so go check that out if you want, and please do support it. It looks great, and I cannot wait to dive into it personally and see what it's all about. I gotta put a review request in for that. It's a little late for that, but we'll do it anyway. It's just, this has been such a busy week for me. But yeah, go check that out. Not much to add there, because it's not like they showed specific things. It was just a trailer. And unless you have more to say, we can throw it over to Game Pass Pick of the Week.
No, go ahead.
Perfect. All right. Would you like to go first, or shall I?
Well,
he's pondering.
I mean, I was looking at these, and I'm getting to the point now where it's hard for me to suggest, because it's been a while since I've played some of them, so I don't know if they're great or my brain is telling me they're great. Yeah, you're probably going to have to go, because in the time we were talking, since we started talking about games with gold, I was looking, and I haven't really seen anything on here I would even suggest. Well, Dead Space is on here, but I think you just suggested that last week.
I did Dead Space 2.
You did Dead Space 2. Well, Dead Space 1's on here. Is that good? It's been so long, I can't tell you if Dead Space 1 is even good.
I plan on playing that within the next month or two. So
gotcha.
I will probably be throwing that on my list at some point. But yeah, I get that. Sometimes it's tough because you got to like pick from something you can authoritatively say like, hey, this is good. And it's also difficult because sometimes I will like passionately recommend a game. Like if Lost Odyssey showed up on Game Pass one day, I've already talked about it so much. I'm like, do I do this as a Game Pass Pick of the Week? I don't know. It's why I'm once my life calms down after this weekend, I'm very excited to kind of reconnect and start dabbling through Game Pass like I did towards our like teen shows.
Not only that, but there's two of us, so that means there's twice as many games. You're suggesting some, which means you probably don't want to suggest the ones I suggest. You know what I mean? It eats them up pretty quickly.
My pick of the week then is Destroy All Humans. It's funny, we were talking about THQ Nordic. I will disclose, I did do a sponsored video with THQ Nordic for Destroy All Humans before launch in August. So that was something I did. That said, I really like the game. It was about $40 when it came out. I thought that was a fair price point. It might have been $30. I'm not sure. But it was around that price range. And it's a remake that takes mechanics from Destroy All Humans 2, puts them in the first game, and makes it a much more enjoyable playthrough. It's still got the same wacky writing. It's got the cut content from the first game. I thought it was a really good game. I liked it a lot, but once again, like I said, I did do a sponsored piece of content with it, so if you want to take it with a grain of salt, you can. But that's what Game Pass is great for. You don't got to spend money. Go download it. Give it a shot. I think these games are so fun because we have so many games in our industry now that are extremely serious and trying to tell you a theme or something. And one of the comments I got on my Biomutant review is I said it's a commentary on consumerism and environmentalism for sure. Like you can just tell by what Toxinocorp is.
Oh, God, yeah.
It's 100% a commentary on that. Which is not bad, by the way, but someone wrote in, was like, I'm so tired of hearing about these commentaries on games. And so that's where something beautiful like Destroy All Humans comes up, because it's not a commentary on really anything. It's just like you can fucking use telekinesis and throw cows, and there's a challenge where you can throw like a ton of these like farmers into a water bank and you'll get points for it. And there's skateboarding on a hoverboard. There's just so much ridiculous stuff happening in this game. It's absolutely a blast. And so this is an easy, quick download. Looks great. And they already slightly, or quietly, I should say, confirmed they're going to do one for the second Destroy All Humans game. So look out for that. And now's a good time to hop in and see what's going on with Destroy All Humans. Excellent game. It was originally by Pandemic, who did, pardon the pun, but they did the Battlefront games. We recommended highly Lord of the Rings Conquest. They did Mercenaries. They did the Saboteur. So they did a lot of good stuff. I've talked to some of the devs for this team, and this was one of their golden age games for sure. So Destroy All Humans, give it a download on Game Pass now. This remake is solid. Have you found anything, or should I just leave it at that?
Yeah, not for those in particular. No, not for those. I mean, I would say Dead Space if you're saying.
I think less is more, right? So, like, if you don't have one, we should kind of make that like an unwritten rule. Like, if you don't have one that you're not feeling good about, then I think it's better just to let it sit. Because if there's one recommendation, that's fine, right? 2 is just, I think there's enough in and out of the library. We could do 2 every week, but if either you or I are like, you know what, we don't really have something we want to suggest this week, because it's only a finite amount of time to play them, right? We're doing something every week. I think that's fair. We'll see what the audience thinks. Feel free to write in on that. But
I think most will be okay, because like at some point it's not going to take long before we start getting into some arbitrary titles where then you're just like, and I review games, so I feel bad if I do say, go play this game, and somebody's like, that game had microtransactions. I'm like, fuck, I didn't remember that.
I think we should get ahead of it before it becomes a problem. So feel free to write in about that. Let us know. I think we can agree right now that's something we'll do. And then moving into next week, we'll see what the audience thinks. Backwards compatible pick of the week, a little bit easier because there's such a big library to pick from. Do you have one for that, whether it be Xbox One, 360, original Xbox?
Well, yeah, but then I realized I had already done it, which was Splinter Cells. This is another problem with me, is I have a tendency to return to the really good games I like. So I'm just scrolling through here to see if there's anything. Well, not a bad problem, but a problem nonetheless. But I'm trying to find anything I've played. This one's a little bit. See, with backwards compatibility, there's a lot of these I missed. Balin, by the way, Balin Wonderworld, or whatever that one's called, is on the backwards compat list. Why is that?
Xbox One.
Oh, game. Because there's only an Xbox One version of the. Okay, gotcha, dude. This is confusing me.
That's
time.
why I have an Xbox One game for my back compat, because it is. And it, like,
yeah, go. What is yours while I look?
Mine's a Rare Replay, and I know this is one that a lot of people have played, but I like this a lot because there are games like Jet Force Gemini is probably my favorite out of the Rare Replay collection, which I know is probably a hot take. Huh. I love I think I love space stuff. I love third person shooters. I just the way it plays, it reminds me of just the N64 so much. And what I like about the Rare Replay version of this is you can go in and customize the controls. Shout out to, I believe it was Many a True Nerd, who put this on his Twitter account. Good YouTuber, does a lot of Let's Play content if you want to check him out. But he put it on his Twitter account that you can adjust the controls when it came out to be more third-person shooter controls, where you could like look, aim, shoot, all that with the typical shooter controls, but it wasn't defaulted that way. It was like this weird button layout, so it felt really bad if you played it as the game had originally set it. But if you go in and change these controls, it feels really good. There's also like the Battletoads games in there. There's the one with the Christmas level that I
Viva
love.
Pinata.
Viva Pinata's great. Yeah, they're just. Although I will admit, have not played that, but Rare Replay is still such a incredible deal. I remember my hype for this game. I wasn't like a big Rare kid. I was excited because I never had like an attachment to Rare, so it was like my chance to discover it. And it was like diving into all these different games. I really liked it. The Perfect Dark games are here. I mean, there's a lot to, of course, dive into, and I could individualize each of these and do my backwards compat picks of the week as I go through them more, which I eventually will. But Rare Replay as a collection is such staggering value that I'm surprised more people don't even talk about it to this day of like what went into this. And I understand it's kind of a pain in the ass to download because you'll have a bunch of separate... I was
going to say, I think that's why, is because even myself, I was stunned when I got it for review and realized every single one was just, an ISO download, basically.
They have like a collection that's on disc, and then they have like these separate games like Perfect Dark Zero and stuff of the 360.
Vivas were both
Vivas
separate. Oh.
Yeah. It's like at that point, is it really a collection? I mean, you got the games, right? So
exactly, it was like a set of keys. It was an odd. I mean, by the way, I love that they were there, but it was just it made it more difficult.
Yeah. So that'd be my backwards compatible pick of the week. It's on Game Pass as well if you want to download it. But I really like this collection. And I kind of want to go back to it at some point.
So I don't want to go with this one. I want to go. Have you ever played Knights of Pen and Paper? So there's two D&D ones I like. I was going to do Neverwinter, which is the online free MMO, but I think I've done that, and if I haven't, I've talked it up so much, maybe I'll do it next week.
I don't remember you saying that at all, to be honest. Like, even talking it up, gotcha. I don't recall.
But have you ever done the Knights of Pen and Paper? Have you ever done that game?
No.
Do you know what that... Okay, so Knights of Pen and Paper is phenomenal, and it was popular on mobile, then came to the consoles, and then for whatever reason, I just didn't hear about it. But what it is it looks like a game like a Kirasoft game a little bit. So what are those games? Like game dev story and those games. But you're D&D players and there's a DM and you basically like play D&D in a video game form and raise up your characters and the world change. So like if he says you're in a field will appear but your table's still there sometimes. And like, so it's meta, it's fourth wall kind of stuff. And I didn't know if this was single. This says it's 2. So you get 1 and 2, I guess, which I thought there was only 1 available. But anyway, if people haven't checked this out, the game is fucking awesome because so it'll be like me playing D&D with my players, almost like on Discord, but then behind them, the monsters show, or behind the DM, the monsters show up and you have to actually attack them with your character sheet. It's pretty cool. It's not cool, graphically what you might expect for a console, which is a little bit why I was hedging this. So if you have it's probably on Switch, or if you have an Android phone, I'm absolutely sure it's on iPad, Android, so you could certainly do that. But it is backwards compat, and that game, number 1 in particular, by the way, is I think better. But anyway, very cool games. And they have, I do not know if it's on Xbox, but they have a space one, I believe now too, where you're D&D in space, where you're like Cyberpunk or whatever you call it. But yeah, you have different characters like hipster and all. Yeah, there's some pretty cool stuff. Some pretty cool stuff in that game.
I like that.
You haven't played that one?
Never even.
That's
heard
interesting
of it,
because I thought just on Switch, maybe.
I will say I was kind of late to the whole D&D side of things. Like I think Divinity sort of eased me into it, and then I started playing D&D, and I want to say it was like 2017 or 18, if I remember. And so like that's when I really started attaching myself to it. So I'm actually technically still pretty new to everything.
Gotcha.
But this looks like a great game. It's a good pick. All right. As per usual, 5 ending questions you can write in on patreon.com/laststandmedia to go ahead and join the show. Maybe. Who knows? Maybe we ignore you. We'll see. Juan Paolini, did not get ignored. Angry Minotaur Matty and Senor Karak, he who engages in the act of play. I want to congratulate you both on your great work, both inside and outside of this podcast. I'm one of those who has heard of you, but it's through this podcast that I became a fan of you both. You've even went as far as to inspire me to create content myself. Thank you.
Good.
That's very, very awesome to hear. On to the question. I'd love if you could share a bit of what goes into your review process. I imagine you take notes as you're playing the game. Do you capture everything you play? Or do you play the game first and then go back and capture what you need from the game? What advice do you have for a newcomer that wants to create reviews for games? I appreciate your guidance and your work. So this is what I was talking about with, I think it was Biomutant, where I said we were going to get into our review process a little bit more. I know you and I have talked a little bit on Ham Radio about this. We've talked about this, just you and I together when we were like first meeting. But for those who don't know your process, because we both have similar processes in certain ways, but different in others. Would you want to go first on some of the typical things you do per reviews?
Yeah, I mean, some of it's sort of I'm not going to say a fucking industry secret, but I will say that I think some of the stuff I do saves me time, and so I'm not just going to randomly blurt some of these things out, but I definitely have noticed that, like, when I help somebody behind the scenes or somebody's on the Discord and I tell them some of the stuff I do, they're like, oh my God, I hadn't thought about that. You and I have talked about it. But what I'm saying is, on a podcast, I probably won't mention some, but there's some stuff when it comes to everything from recording to naming files, all that kind of stuff. I'm pretty anal about that kind of thing. And I think that helps because then when you go into your Premiere or your Sony Vegas, it's much easier to parse what's going on without scrubbing a video file. But I do not take notes. Well, I mean, yeah, I don't. I take notes if there's a bug, I'll name a file the bug or what have you, and I'll put a note to talk about that. But I don't really do notes because I find that I wouldn't be able to parse where I would want to put them in a review. So, and then what I do is I pretend I'm talking to my best friend, and because that's how I got into reviews, was talking to him, and he was like, oh man, you should do reviews because I find everybody's asking you if you like a game. So what I do is I pretend, still the same person, by the way, after all these years, I just basically pretend like, and he's been on the channel for multiple podcasts, I just pretend like I'm talking to him. And the one-liners and the jokes, that stuff is all what I would say to him or to you or in this podcast. Like, people hear me drop something and be like, what the fuck? That's exactly how we would talk if we were playing side by side. Like you were saying, telling your friend to die or whatever. People just would be like audacious. They don't realize that that's the joke. It's, of course you don't mean it. And so those kind of jokes, that's how I do my reviews. I do track if a game is a good reflection of the genre, and if it is not, is it a good change or addition to it? And I do try to review if a game is good, not only from whatever genre the company has chosen, but another genre. Like, I do know one of the reasons why I found out the Biomutant review was doing well is because people were like, oh, he didn't just talk about it in action, he talked about Zen, and like if somebody just wants to relax and play the game versus what they were trying to tell you should do. And then I think the advice I would give other people is don't copy somebody else, and take if you have a skill or a job that can help you explain or work within your review, you should. I wrote music, so covering music worked. I talk a lot, voice worked. Like, those things make sense for me. I've had people say, can I do sound, music, and voice? And I'm like, well, number one, yes, you can. But number two, do you know what the fuck you're talking about? Because if you don't, what are you going to be saying? Like, is it going to hurt you? Which it can. It could hurt you. It could come across, people could be like, dude, this person doesn't know what they're talking about. So I would say find stuff that you know and try to put it into the review, and things that you may want to cover, or things that you've had issues with in the past. Have you had issues with monetizations? Maybe you focus on that. Because I don't know a lot of people who even... I mean, I categorize monetizations at the end of the gameplay section, but I mean, I don't think most reviewers have a section for monetizations for the most part. Like, it's just sort of in there somewhere. So that might work out for you. But that's about all I have. I mean, I think it's different for everybody, and even more so for me, because I'm pretty loosey-goosey in how I do it.
I think number one thing I would want to pass on is note-taking. I think I see a scary amount of reviewers online admitting they just play the game and then write their script, and there's just way too many things when I used to do that in high school, mind you. There's just so much falls through the cracks. And like I said, when I used to do my reviews in high school, I think you can tell there's a big difference in how much data I pack, because you don't want to have that moment that every fucking reviewer on this planet's had where you post it and then someone asks a question, you go, how did I forget to mention that? Like, and you answer in the comments. It's weird because the question I feel I ask myself is like, why wasn't this just in the video? So I'm very, very attentive at taking notes. I think that's the most important thing that you can really do for reviews, is if you're going to provide a reason why someone should or should not purchase or wait for something, you should have the reasons available to be described both visually and audibly. So that taps into gameplay, kind of like what Karak said, naming files. What I used to do was I would capture gameplay in bulk. So it would be like, let's say I'm reviewing Far Cry 5. It would be Far Cry 5 gameplay 1, Far Cry 5 gameplay 2, 3, and it would be these like 2-hour files.
Ouch.
And you just remember it, because I'd edit my own reviews. As I started working more and more with editors, I recognized, like, right when I was starting to put it together, I just naturally was like, he's going to not know if I just put, like, bugs. Like, it's not going to be in gameplay 2. You'd start to label it in that way. So that's when my labeling became even more emphasized. But before that, I had already started changing it. Elgato has great capture software where you can pick the game name and the subject. So like Biomutant, I had files like Biomutant Beautiful is what I called it. And it was just this shot of me sort of rotating the camera. It's like, that's what I'm talking about, the graphics. Biomutant bugs. Like, I'll just sometimes fire on the Elgato, and I'll record typically in like 30-minute chunks, because once it starts going on too long, you'll find yourself just building up those files. And as someone who sometimes has someone else edit my stuff, I want to make sure it's as compact as possible. So I don't need to send them 50 gigs if I could send them 30. So I try to keep that in mind, especially because I'm not always here at the studio. I have to transfer the files onto a hard drive, upload them here to this computer, and then put them on the cloud. Whereas my home internet's a little bit slower. For those of you who watch my streams, you know this. Outside of that, I would say tap into what makes your review stand out. So I don't think I have a particular skill that makes my review stand out, other than like I just have naturally always been very detailed, just detail oriented. I think that kind of comes from, I used to do trailer analysis videos. I do the in-depth analysis, for those who remember. And so I sort of carried that analyzing into my review space. I took inspiration from Karak and Colin of sound for Karak, and just the way the Skill Up's another great example. I listened to his vocabulary, and to me, Karak as well, it was the importance of having the word to have that aha moment. That's how I was feeling. Being able to give the consumer a clear picture in their head of what you're feeling when you have that moment is extremely underrated. But other than that, I personally don't really have any secrets, tricks of the trade other than capturing small chunks, wisely label your content, take your notes, and I think there is a little bit of burnout in just showing all gameplay. You'll have certain chunks that run for a while, so that's why I like to alternate between face cam and gameplay, because I really like having the ability to talk to the person. Like, a lot of people say my channel is like you're just talking to a good friend, creating that vibe of just talking to them, setting it up, and then when the gameplay shows, it's exactly what I'm talking about. So it's like this connection each time. But tap into that niche of yours, and you'll be just fine. All right. Owen's up next. Hey, Dukes. Is Obsidian working on Outer Worlds 2? I know with the reason Bethesda purchased, the hype around a new Fallout, New Vegas returned, and they're working on Avowed as well as Josh Sawyer's mysterious project. But I absolutely love this new IP. The characters are great, and although I found the inventory system annoying and lacking, I truly think they nailed a great first game and what could potentially be a great franchise. I'm worried that with Bethesda's purchase, we may not see this IP again for some time. What are your thoughts? Have an absolutely meh day, Owen. Thank you, Owen. We did cover last week or the week before that Private Division has let off on the Outer Worlds, and now Microsoft will be purchasing it in the future. I'd be shocked if there wasn't a sequel for this game. It did well. It charted. And not only that, but this was called Obsidian's dream game. That's what Leonard Boyarsky and Tim Cade said. This was their dream game. Did they? Yeah. So I don't know why they would make their dream game once and then be done with it, especially because, let's be honest, I love the Outer Worlds. I think it's one of the best RPGs that we saw that generation. But there were some things that could have been better in a lot of ways, and I think we saw that being addressed more and more in its DLC, in its expansions, especially Murder on Eridanos, where it was like very thoughtful. It was well crafted, just such a great piece of DLC content. DLC content, that means the same. You get what I'm saying, though. Point being is, I think you're going to see more of this. I heard some interesting rumors about that. I don't know if I really want to share, because I think they're so fucking wild and out there that it's like, I feel like I'd just be misleading people, but I imagine you will be seeing more of it. How soon? I don't know. I've heard varying degrees of things from soon to not soon. But they have a lot of projects that they're working on. We talked about Carrie Patel's directing her own project. We have Grounded. We have Josh Sawyer doing his own project, Avowed, and maybe the Outer Worlds 2 now. So I don't know how they're balancing all this. They haven't grown exponentially, but they have grown. They are hiring. So what do you think, Karak? The Outer Worlds 2, when, where, how?
It seems like they're working on too much stuff to work on it. Yeah. So that's what I'm worried about. I would rather have them cancel all that stuff and do Outer Worlds, though. That's just me. I like Outer Worlds.
Even Avowed?
Oh, yeah. Because Avowed's the worst fucking named, most bland thing right now ever. I mean, seriously, I don't know anything about it. So it's like, and I like Pillars. But if you asked me, so Pillars 2 I did not like as much as 1. In fact, I felt Pillars 2, speaking of political stuff, Pillars 2 there were some things going on in Pillars 2 that made even me go, because normally I'm okay. Like if something's got a weird message or whatever, or not weird, I should just say a message.
There's times where it's more obvious, I think, is what happens, right? Yeah.
Pillars 2 there were some just oddities, like why did that happen in this way? You know, and I was trying to figure it out, but I still liked it, and I still love the world. Oh, but hell, dude, if they were like, we're going to cancel everything and do Outer Worlds, I would be the first to celebrate. I really think that, I love it. And Murder showed to me that, like, they're probably better at DLC than other than Far Harbor, than most other DLC for all the other games, of this style. Murder was good. And it wasn't like the best. I'm just talking about DLC usually isn't great unless it is amazing. This was like on the upper echelon and showed to me it's like, are they at that point to where they just need a little bit more? And I know the Iron Lords did that interview with the two, I think it was the two writers for Murder. And like, I was sitting there going like, oh my God, please don't let this die just because of the deal. Because that's what I they said this is our dream game, but did they really just mean that because like, that's sort of what they wanted to do right then, or was it truly their dream game? And if it is, please don't let that IP die, because that IP is quite enjoyable, and it's that hub-based world I like so much. Open worlds are great, but hub-based, like they did, which is a KOTOR ripoff kind of thing, is my jam. It's my favorite thing.
Oh, dude, the hub-based. You and I are 100%.
Yeah.
It
offers the freedom of open world at times, but also that contained narrative to make you like it's got that pump to it. So
absolutely, anyway, I truly think it's when games are at their best in those hub spaces, because it's exactly as you said. It's,
pretty much
everything can be done. It's why I love the first Dishonored so much. I thought the second one was excellent, but the first one was just these tight sandboxes that were so intricately designed, and there were so many things that could happen here because they were not so big, right?
Yeah,
and there was so much content you could dip into, and it was replayable. I just love that design, and I just man, fuck. I agree. I would love to see them with the Outer
even
Worlds
Greedfall
2 and a budget. Greedfall as well, yeah.
Greedfall's technically mostly I would consider a hub where like you have a place that I guess that might be even more open, but I think Outer Worlds, the only thing I would have liked, and I would love to see in a sequel, is for them to make the ship feel more like a home. I felt that when you went back to your ship, there was one or two sentences, and you were like, less than KOTOR, but better than most games. However, I want them to nail it. I want to go back, and I want to be able to tell everybody, like in the TV show Firefly, I want to be like, let's all play poker. Have a poker game in there. I want my ship to feel like Outer Worlds, might do this, by the way. But whatever game does it, I want the hub to feel, and I know you didn't like it as much, but I felt that Syndicate, Assassin's Creed Syndicate did a good job because it was the train, and it was your base. It was a mobile base, and it offers that snap where it's not just a base. It's some new thing. Yeah, your brain is like, whoa, wait, what is this? It was a spaceship. They didn't do as much as I would have wanted. Just a bit more would have been nice for that.
I did verify. It was Leonard Boyarsky who said it was his dream game.
Who is that? What did he do?
That is, he was one of the directors and writers for the Outer Worlds, the base game. Because I'm looking at this interview with GameSpot. It goes, I think I've seen you, Boyarsky, quoted online saying this is a dream project. What aspect of this would you say is a dream? And he says, oh, it's definitely working with Tim. Then he laughs. No, but it is, though. That's exactly what I meant. And he goes on to explain why. But
okay.
Yeah, so it was for him. I shouldn't say for Obsidian as a whole, just to be perfectly clear. But I know they steer the ship pretty often there.
True.
I'm hoping for Outer Worlds 2. I think they're going to do it. I don't know when they're going to announce it. Maybe Obsidian's going to take the Bethesda route and sort of just lay out the land. What this would effectively do, though, and I think people would be slightly disappointed, is it would just kind of wipe off the potential of a new Fallout game from Obsidian. But I don't know how it's about. But people got to recognize Bethesda's not this charitable company that they all think they are. They're not going to just give up the Fallout license.
Right. No,
as much as I want them to, I don't think they're going to do that, especially with Obsidian. Maybe collaboratively, sure.
Yeah, collaboratively, I absolutely see it.
But not giving them the whole game, I don't think so. We'll see. By the way, I would love to be wrong. I would love to be wrong.
I would just like them to do that more of the fostering of like, here's our team. I just think that would be. It probably will never happen, but I mean, even with the nonprofit I worked with, we would work with another nonprofit sometimes. Their team would come in. We would work together. I just the idea of them being like, oh, this is our Fallout team, and it's Obsidian, and all of a sudden people are like, wait, that's a Microsoft engineer. That's a guy from Arcane. That's a guy from id. That's a guy from fucking... dude, the world would explode. It would. Whether you can corral all those, you would need a good game director, by the way. You would need a game director who had some balls, who'd be like, listen, shut up, sit down. Here's what we need from all of... Because a lot of those guys would be so high up that they probably wouldn't be accustomed to, like, You know, sometimes you get the
Yeah.
superstar sports team that falls apart because nobody wants to listen, but it would
Right.
still be fucking, I don't care if fucking Phil steps down and is like, I'm taking command. It would be so cool to see. It will never happen. Probably because there's probably things I'm not thinking of, but man, a person can dream.
Of course. Ryan Matney's up next. Hey, fellas, hope your week is going super-tastic. Where are the demos? I can remember when I was a youngster, we had a surplus of game demos. Today, it seems only a few games get demos released. I've always been a true believer that if you have a great game, then you should release a demo to allow gamers to play your product prior to buying. What are your thoughts on demos, and do you ever see them coming back? Love your show, and I hope the rest of your week is supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. Thank you, Ryan.
Can I explain this from a tech side real quick?
By all means,
and,
yeah.
And then that way we can go with like our rose-tinted glasses. First, I went and checked a couple years ago. We didn't have near as many demos as we thought we did. I, including in that boat, thought we had a bunch, and then went back and looked at various online sites, archives, and talked to a couple devs. Nowhere near as many devs as I thought demos as I thought we did. But demos currently are very difficult because if you time it, usually somebody will crack the timer quite quickly, which is what we just had week before last or whatever, where people cracked one of the timers for a large demo that went out. Vertical slices are incredibly expensive to make, which is why E3 vertical slices were going away, because it can cost up to $1 million. Cliff Basinski said it was $500,000 for one of theirs to make a single vertical slice for E3. And the reason why people don't understand is if something is packaged, imagine you package an entire book, but the book is almost like a choose your own adventure, let's say. So it's not 1 through 400. It's a choose your own adventure where you use all 400 pages. To slice that, you have to make sure that whatever page you're on and whatever page you go to is within the small slice you give. The problem with game design is that is not the way games are made. The games usually have tie-ins all over the place. And so what will happen is a dev will sometimes, this has happened, put the entire game on there, put a timer or some other, and somebody will crack it. Boom, the game is available. So they don't want to do that. What they want to do is give you a piecemeal part. That can be difficult. So technically, if you think that it's laziness or whatever you may think, it's none of that. It truly, that's the one time I'll defend and say that it's just not that. It's that cost and difficulty and then issues later, including hacking of your not your source code, but breaking of your archives for textures and all that kind of stuff. All that can happen, and it can cause all kinds of issues. So that it's just, I think it's, and also expectations, because by the way, I've played a game where the demo was not what the game, when we got the game, there were parts missing and people blew their lids. They just absolutely freaked. They were like, well, that character's not in the demo or whatever. And they're like, yeah, it's a demo. We removed it, and people were against it. So anyway.
Yeah, I think it's always been one of those situations where it's easy to say, just give us a demo, because people think you're just going and pulling a piece out of the game out and uploading it on a server like a YouTube video, and it's like, that's not how it works. So, yeah, it's one of those things where I commend developers who do it often.
Yeah,
I think, like, Bethesda had a really good idea, I think, for future games. Like, they did a Prey trial. They did a Wolfenstein trial, because those games were not selling well. And I thought that was really cool, because they were like, play for an hour. You have an hour trial, and then if you like it, you just buy the full thing and just keep playing right there.
Streaming. Stadia did streaming. I think Microsoft's plan is to do demos via streaming, because that way source code never gets to your house. You know, it never gets to you. It's handled via a service. So therefore, they don't have to worry about that shit.
Not only that, it's quicker, right? Like for the consumer, you don't got to sit there
for the
and
consumer.
download something.
Yeah, imagine just hitting a button and like, because Google has some negatives, Matty, but some of its positives are not only that, but the idea that, I don't know if we talked about this, technically with Google, with any streaming service, you can mux far away, meaning I could get 3 games and ship it to my house via the stream. My stream would have no extra bit rate, but it would still show 3 games. Right. So the idea of having a shooter where I can see your video on my screen as like a little mini map or a little icon, and it shows what you're seeing, that's completely possible with nothing that's needed from the consumer. But that's considered split screen at home, extra processing, blah, blah, blah. Same can be done with demos, all this stuff. I can't wait to see that tech come in, whether it be demos where you just go in and you're like, what demos are available? You hit a button. And I think you can already do some of this on the cloud anyway. on Xbox. If I think there are some games where you already have that, but yeah,
Yep.
be very cool.
Next up is Zach Yearwood. Hey, Soul Crusher, Karak, and Matty. As I'm just getting this in before the deadline, Epic has released a new technical demo for Unreal Engine 5, and an early access version of the new engine is now available. Based on this release and the full release coming early 2022, is there anything to learn from this when looking at the current slate of Xbox Unreal Engine 5 titles such as Hellblade 2, and when to expect them? Thanks for the great work, especially Matty pulling in the overtime with all the podcasts he jumped into recently. Thank you, Zach. Appreciate that. I saw the demo for this. I think the only thing that really stood out to me, very subtle thing, by the way, and I don't even think it's an Unreal Engine 5 thing, is when the big, for those who haven't seen it, there's this big Titan-like creature with an orb for a head, and this character shoots a spell, and it cracks the orb, it plays like a cutscene when the character is going down, in-game cutscene it looked like, but the character's going down after they defeat it, and when the camera pulls out, it's less obvious that the camera has now sat and been fixated in place to return to gameplay. That was one thing I noticed right away, and I was like, that's pretty good. And I could see a game like Hellblade 2 100% benefiting from something like that for how story-driven the first one was, but that's just a guess. Otherwise, it was, very simple thoughts like, ooh, pretty look, particle details, good graphics, all that shit. So I don't have very thoughtful feedback for this outside of that, so I don't have much to add beyond it.
It was pretty much identical to what I thought, other than you don't do your game engine via early access, but fuck off. Everybody's doing early access. I think an early access game engine, that's like a hand job without a finish. It's just, it's completely useless. So I think that sort of sucks. And I was not impressed, honestly, by the graphics. Not in but the games look really good right now. And so it's more that the games we're playing right now are looking mighty impressive. And so when I do see that and the lack of any real movement on the character's part and stuff like that, I was like, all right. Like it's like I've been playing some pretty Biomutant, say what you will. At times Biomutant's fucking incredible looking. And so you get that the reducing of the returns on on your investment. So
last question of the show, Cole Helgerson, congrats. Hey, Matt and Karak, after listening to the Nier Replicant 8675309 spoiler cast and learning that Matty played Nier on PS4, we can let that slide. Are there certain genres or games that you prefer to play on Xbox? I tend to play multiplayer games or shooters on Xbox, but then RPGs on PlayStation. Thanks for the great show every week. Do you have a go-to for particular platforms?
No. I would say third person open world action games on the PlayStation, because that's all they make. But I'm not joking, but it's like I sort of felt like when he said he plays some, I was like, we're not talking about like those games, right? Because that's the only place where those really are.
That's all I got, man.
Yeah, but like and then Gears is on the Xbox, so like to me they sort of have to be played in those places. But I would say no, I don't. I think the triggers might help in the future when they're fixed, because I think they're really rough right now. But adaptive triggers, I could certainly see people adapting. Not adapting to it, but wanting to play the PS5 more because of the adaptive triggers. But other than that, there is nothing on those systems that I think pushes me to one or the other. It's my friends. What do they have? If my friend has the game on Xbox, most likely that's where I'm going to be playing it. Yeah,
same. I will say that right now for JRPGs, I do tend to look to PlayStation. They've just kind of had the better performing ones. They seem to be the system associated with it consistently until Xbox can really
you're not going to be playing
challenge that.
You're not going to play Persona on the Xbox.
Yeah, exactly. So until Xbox starts challenging that, like I think they're going to, it's like, I'm going to go play JRPGs on PlayStation. But outside of that, it's not even at times like what performs best. It's just, where are my friends at? What are they doing? And if it's a single player game, it's like, well, at times I'll just look at the box art because I don't care about the performance to a certain extent. Like if it's 4K 60 or 4K 120, I'm like, it's 60 or up. Like I'm fine, really. So
true.
It's just
true
like
that.
I'll look at the box art and go, hey, Biomutant looks like a great Xbox game, right? It's like, okay, we'll grab it for there. It's a little bit different, right? Because of the resolution output with the upscaling on PS5 versus.
But I know, ignoring
Xbox,
that one particular one, I get what you're saying, though. Yeah, for sure.
So,
it
sounds
skins
simple,
might matter.
Yeah.
Right? Or unlocks, maybe
right.
platform unlocks, like Assassin's Creed had some PS4 specific stuff. I could see choosing that if you're a big Assassin's Creed fan. Assassin's Creed had a lot, didn't they?
Yeah, and when you see like obvious brand dealings ongoing, like it's clear that PlayStation and Resident Evil are like tied together, so you can totally see in the future, like exclusive DLC or time DLC. It's like I bought it for my PS5 because I'm like, I could totally see this continuing into some type of expansion that comes first to PlayStation 5, and if I want to play it, then I want to be on the place where, it's going to be immediately available. You don't have to wait. So
yeah, even if it's going to be available later, I agree with you. I would go towards the one where I'm pretty guaranteed it's going to be available first. Even if it's going to be available in both, I'll probably do that.
Yep. That's all we got for this show, though, Karak. It's been a blast.
Yeah, sorry for the yawning, people. It's not.
No, it's fine. We both had quite the day.
Yeah, it's a weird time frame. It's only an hour later than normal, but like, fuck, man,
I started to taper off at the end, though. I don't think you're wrong. I started to really like drift off when that last 30 minutes there. Part of it's I'm starving, right? Because we are late. So typically we finish a show and I'm just getting hungry. So I go and eat right after. But now we're into the hunger hours, and it's like, fuck, now I need to get something.
My dogs were hungry enough to eat the entire bag of food. So everybody was hungry. Hungry. But yeah. Thanks for everybody for showing up and listening, for sure. What do we got for a tag? For a hashtag? What did we cover at first? We covered Starfield. We covered I thought it was a shitty JPEG. We covered the art. We could do some
hashtag JPEG. We definitely sat on that for so long. People are gonna be annoyed.
We
I can
did.
Hear it.
That's true. We did stick a hashtag art critic.
Yeah. Yes.
That's exactly what we were.
That. Yeah.
Yeah. Hashtag art critic. If you got this far. That's we did. I'm sure I thought about that because I brought us back a couple times. So did you. And I was like, I bet you somebody's going to be like, shut the fuck up.
I remember one time, there was one topic we were on that we sat on for a while. I can't even remember what it was, but someone wrote in and like they posted a comment going, wow, you guys are sitting on this topic for a while. And then went, edit. Holy shit, I can't believe you're still talking about this. It's not that difficult to figure. Like, someone was just clearly annoyed. I guarantee this is going to happen for our section there at E3.
Now I'm happy about it. I want to go back and record a longer one. Be like, let's break down the color theme. Anyway, yeah. Hashtag art critic if you got this far, peeps. That would be awesome. I would love to see that.
Love to hear from you. And that does it for this episode. We have our own Patreons if you want to support those, or our YouTube channels. Mr. Matty Plays is where you can find me on all platforms. Appreciate those of you who've reached out, have signed up wherever, and just support what I'm doing. Karak, where can everyone find you? And then we'll wrap this up.
Angry Centaur Gaming, or ACG on YouTube, and the same on Patreon. And yeah, perfect. I would definitely appreciate people checking it out.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you to those of you who make that leap of faith. We look forward to interacting with you, whether it be through the show or on our own platforms. And until then, take good care of yourselves, and we will talk to you very soon. Peace out.
Peace out.
The Finding Duke, an Xbox podcast, is a product and trademark of Last Stand Media and Collins Last Stand LLC, and is recorded from the good old USA. The show was conceived by Matthew Mr. Matty Plays Schroeder and me, Colin Moriarty, and is written and produced by Matthew Schroeder. Matty's co-host is Jeremy ACG Penter. The Finding Duke's executive producer is Dustin Furman, and the show is edited by associate producer Ben Smith. All of Last Stand's theme music is by Ramon Narvaez. As you know, all of Last Stand Media's shows, including Defining Duke, are fan-funded on Patreon at patreon.com/laststandmedia. The following names are at the producer support level or higher on Patreon, and we're grateful for your kindness and generosity.